Chapter 2056 Origins. 2056 Origins. After the banquet ended, Jian Wushuang naturally returned to Greenfire World. There were many experts in Greenfire World, including Jian Wushuang's family and friends. When they found out that Jian Wushuang had returned, they were naturally surprised. Although Jian Wushuang had only left for 30 years, they knew that Jian Wushuang had gone to an extremely dangerous place. Fortunately, Jian Wushuang had come back alive. After a simple gathering with his family and friends, Jian Wushuang began to cultivate again. He knew clearly what he wanted to do, which was to constantly increase his power. Then he could protect his hometown, his family and his friends. In the blink of an eye, 20 years flew past. In the past 20 years, no matter if it was Eternal Chaotic World or Three Emperors World, they had been preparing for the upcoming war. No one from any party would start a war before full preparation was done. At least, neither party had fought for the past 20 years. In the secret room in Wushuang City, Jian Wushuang had sat quietly as he studied the sword principles. Suddenly, Virum. There was a fierce aura that suddenly soared up from within Wushuang City. The aura was accompanied by strong divine might. Jian Wushuang was immediately shaken. He plunged towards the source of the aura without hesitation. When he got there, he saw a destroyed pavilion and a figure slowly rising. The person looked at Jian Wushuang smilingly. Father. Jian Wushuang quickly greeted in excitement. The figure that soared up was his father, Jian Nantian. Then Jian Nantian wasn't giving out an aura of a chaotic real god but of a Sir God level. An almighty. His father had become an almighty. Father, congratulations, Jian Wushuang laughed. Had seen Jian Nantian break through and he felt even happier than at seeing his own breakthrough. Because he clearly knew what Jian Nantian's breakthrough represented. It meant that besides himself, the first almighty in Greenfire World had been born. Jian Nantian was the first among all cultivators in Greenfire World to step foot on the almighty level. With the first person becoming almighty, would the second and third almighties be far away? In no time, various forces and experts in Greenfire World rushed over. When they saw Jian Nantian break through, the experts congratulated him on his achievement. At the same time they grew excited in anticipation. Palace Master, congratulations. Hall Master Yuan's consciousness embodiment came to congratulate him too. Jian Wushuang smiled and then asked, Hall Master Yuan, how is Lineage of Star doing? Has Universe Galaxy fully recovered? Thanks to Palace Master, the spiritual influence of heaven and earth in Greenfire World is very pure, far purer than Purple Moon Sanctuary by dozens of times. With such intense spiritual influence of heaven and earth, Universe Galaxy is almost fully recovered. It will be much more powerful than before too, Hall Master Yuan smiled. As for Lineage of Star, everything is in order. Plus, the environment in Greenfire World has benefited the disciples of Lineage of Star too. They have improved tremendously. Now, Lineage of Star not only continuously gives birth to real gods, even almighties, we have already given birth to two now. Jian Wushuang beamed with joy. Almighty. Back in Purple Moon Sanctuary, there were only 4 almighties in Lineage of Star, including Jian Wushuang. It was extremely difficult to even produce one. However, Lineage of Star had been at Greenfire World for less than 2,000 years but there were already 2 almighties. The speed was naturally far beyond Purple Moon Sanctuary. Palace Master, your lineal disciple is cultivating in seclusion too. When he exits seclusion, I reckon he should become an almighty too, Hall Master Yuan smiled and added. Jian Wushuang was surprised. He had a total of 2 lineal disciples. He had first taken in Lin Lan. After all, he was from ancient worlds. He had limited talents. Although he had received many resources for nurturing due to Jian Wushuang, he would at most become a chaotic real god. It was almost impossible for him to break through and become an almighty. The other one was the extremely talented He Xiu. He has extremely gifted himself. On top of that, Jian Wushuang had mentored him. He had already shown his spurs in Eternal Chaotic World long ago. Then he had already reached the peak of chaotic real god. Next, he was naturally aiming for almighty level. It was within Jian Wushuang's expectations. Oh yeah, Hall Master Yuan, regarding what I told you to check, how was it? Jian Wushuang suddenly asked. I got it done long ago and I am certain that the guy, Chen who you left in the Commoner's World in Qingtian Mystery Land, had already passed away 6,000 years after you left Qingtian Mystery Land, Hall Master Yuan said. Passed away. Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows but he had been mentally prepared. Chen who? Jian Wushuang had met him when he was going through his 3rd inverse cultivation test. Then he had lost all his divine power and become a fragile old man, so he could only go for training in a commoner's world. He had gotten to know Chen there and they had been through a lot. Chen could be considered as half his disciple. Later on he had passed his third inverse cultivation test and he had regained his power. When Head left Qingtian Mystery Land, Head left behind a test for Chen. As long as he could pass the test within a time limit, he would send someone to pick him and bring him to Eternal Chaotic World and take him on as his disciple. After tens of thousands of years, he didn't feel anyone taking the test that Head left behind. Then he realized that Chen might have passed away. Actually, Chen worked hard to improve and he was very close to passing the test that you left there. However, 6,000 years after you left, Qingtian Mystery Land went through a drastic change and stirred up a great war. Chen, as the leader of one of the parties, although he fought with his all, was defeated and he passed away during the war, Hall Master Yuan reported. Jian Wushuang sighed emotionally but he could do nothing about it. One's fate was in one's hand. Just like himself, he had been through so many life and death dangers until Head reached where he was. Green Fire World had also been through many obstacles and challenges until it could secure a standing in Eternal Chaotic World and hold such a position. If it didn't pass any threshold during the process, the ending would be entirely different. Now he was facing a similar situation. Eternal Chaotic World and Three Emperors World were going to fight a life and death war. As one of the peak existences in Eternal Chaotic World, he would either lead Eternal Chaotic World and defeat the other party or be vanquished alongside Eternal Chaotic World and Green Fire World. Chapter 2057 Investigation Resul. 2057 Investigation Resul. Green Fire World has used the painstaking efforts of the ancestors and the lives of experts to finally be where it is today. I am not going to let it ruin in my hand. Eternal Chaotic World has to win this war. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands tightly and his eyes were glaring. Just then, Jian Wushuang, hurry up and come to Thunderbolt Island. Emperor Bai sent him a message. Jian Wushuang was surprised. He handed down some tasks before he headed over to Thunderbolt Island. Thunderbolt Island was still the core cultivation place in Sanctuary Alliance. Although there was Green Fire World, only genius disciples from Eternal Chaotic World who got to be in Green Fire World. The experts above real god level had never once entered Green Fire World. The lowest requirement to enter Thunderbolt Island was to be a void real god. Hence, one equal to a genius cultivation sanctuary and the other one equal to an opportunity land for experts to gather. Both places were different. Jian Wushuang got to on Thunderbolt Island through a spacetime wormhole. Then he went directly to Sanctuary Mountain. On his way there were naturally many real gods or almighties who saw him. It's Sword Emperor. I heard that Sword Emperor performed extraordinary deeds for Sanctuary Alliance. He is now one of the higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance. He is holding quite a high position. I heard that too. There is even a rumor saying Abysmal Saint Master and Great Emperor Colored Glaze's position and power are below Sword Emperor's. Seriously? How long since Sword Emperor started cultivation? This is crazy. Many experts complimented in secret. Although it had only been 20 years since the war in Three Emperors World, Jian Wushuang had received his recognition in Sanctuary Alliance. Due to the position and power of these real gods and almighties, they didn't know much. However, among the higher-ups, the great emperors acknowledged that Jian Wushuang was only second to Emperor Bai. Sanctuary Mountain on a huge estate. There were 3 figures waiting patiently. Very soon Jian Wushuang arrived in the estate. Mr. Emperor Bai Abysmal, huh? Ancestor Tianqin is here too? Jian Wushuang was surprised as he looked at Ancestor Tianqin next to him. Jian Wushuang, Tianqin is absolutely trustworthy. It is impossible for him to be the enemy's spy. During this time, Tianqin and I have been investigating the spy in secret, Emperor Bai said. Jian Wushuang nodded faintly, not suspecting anything. Among the great emperors in Sanctuary Alliance, the most impossible person would be Ancestor Tianqin. Let's get into the business, Ancestor Tianqin spoke directly. Sword Emperor, Abysmal, we look to you today because there was a result from the investigation of Great Emperor Zisu. How is it? Jian Wushuang asked closely. We still can't be sure that Great Emperor Zisu is the spy. However, through some special tactics that Mr. Emperor Bai and I used to investigate him, we got some information. Both of you take a look. Ancestor Tianqin passed a token to Jian Wushuang and Abysmal Saint Master each. Jian Wushuang and Abysmal Saint Master looked through the tokens carefully. Their eyes dilated in shock as they went through the tokens. Seriously? Great Emperor Zisu killed so many people in secret? And all of them were top geniuses. Jian Wushuang lifted his face and his eyes were filled with shock. In the token, There was a record of various methods with which Great Emperor Zisu had killed the top geniuses in Eternal Chaotic World. There was a total of over a dozen pieces of information. In other words, Great Emperor Zisu had killed over a dozen top geniuses, and all the top geniuses had stood a chance to become peak Emperor God. 3 of them could even have turned into Great Emperors. But in the end, they were killed by Great Emperor Zisu in secret, and it was done very secretively. There was no sign pointed at him in the outside world. If it wasn't only because they already suspected Great Emperor Zisu to begin with, but also because Emperor Bai and Ancestor Tianqin used many unique ways to deal with the experts who worked for Great Emperor Zisu. They were afraid that there were more deaths that were related to Great Emperor Zisu. Lord Hatred, he was the one who killed Lord Hatred. Abysmal Saint Master creased his eyebrows. Lord Hatred was a top genius who could have swept over Eternal Chaotic World 2 million years ago. He was widely known as a supermonster then. He was extremely gifted. After a short cultivation period of over 100,000 years, he reached Sir God level, and he was powerful. It was said that when he first reached Sir God level, his comprehension of doctrine was on the 9th level of Doctrine Palace. In short, he was the standard of a great emperor. He was so powerful that he could easily defeat an emperor god at Sir God level. Back then he had been extremely famous. It was merely a matter of time until he became a great emperor. He might even be on par with Red Dragon King and Abysmal Saint Master, or he might be stronger than them. However, such a super genius had suddenly passed away. Back then, the experts in Eternal Chaotic World said that Lord Hatred was assassinated by the experts from Acheron Palace. Hence, no one suspected anything. Until then only they had found out that Lord Hatred died in the hands of Great Emperor Zisu. The geniuses who were removed by Great Emperor Zisu in secret, the weakest could likely have become a strong emperor god, while the more impressive top geniuses, like Lord Hatred, could totally become the strongest fighting power in Sanctuary Alliance. But in the end, before they could grow up, Great Emperor Zisu killed them in the dark. These geniuses shared no resentment of him. Plus, he had killed the geniuses secretly. No one in the outside world knew about it. Why does he want to kill these top geniuses? If the reason of him killing super geniuses like Lord Hatred was because he was worried they might threaten his position, those who weren't as impressive as Lord Hatred wouldn't be able to pose a threat to him. It was unnecessary for him to kill them. With everything mentioned, plus the fact that he hides his true power, Emperor Bai, and I think that the possibility of him being the spy is higher than 70%. Ancestor Tianqin said solemnly. Only 70%? Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. Although it is only 70% and we are not entirely sure, it is sufficient for us to take him head-on, Emperor Bai said. Take him head-on? Jian Wushuang was stunned. Previously, Emperor Bai and Ancestor Tianqin had only been investigating Great Emperor Zisu secretly. On the surface they hadn't fallen out with Great Emperor Zisu. To deal with him head-on, let's go. We shall make a trip to the estate Zisu is staying in, Emperor Bai said. Jian Wushuang, Abysmal Saint Master and Ancestor Tianqin naturally followed. The estate that Great Emperor Zisu was staying in was in a unique void in Eternal Chaotic World. The estate was extremely huge, like a paradise. Jian Wushuang, Emperor Bai, Abysmal Saint Master and Ancestor Tianqin appeared in the void above the huge estate. Chapter 2058 Anger. 2058 Anger. In the void above, Emperor Bai's gaze was cold as he overlooked the huge estate. I intentionally made Zisu leave earlier. Hence, besides his maidservants, his follower should also be in his estate. The follower is extremely important to Zisu. She knows a lot about Ziza's affairs. The purpose of our visit is to look for her, Emperor Bai said, and he waved. There was a boundless divine power that instantly covered the entire estate and cut off the spacetime between the estate and the outside world. Jian Wushuang's expression grew solemn. He also knew that it was common for a powerful expert to have a follower. For example, Great Emperor Purple Moon had a follower, Chen Mingzi. He had once lent a helping hand to Jian Wushuang. Let's head in, Emperor Bai commanded, and the 4 of them immediately plunged into the estate. In the huge estate that looked like a paradise, there was a boat drifting about on the river. On the boat, there was a beautiful lady in a purple robe. I wonder why Emperor Bai suddenly told Master to go over in a hurry, the beautiful lady in a purple robe muttered. Great Emperor Zisu was originally on the boat too. However, he had suddenly received Emperor Bai's message and left. Just then, huh? The lady in a purple robe suddenly lifted her head to look at the surrounding void. She could sense that the spacetime around the estate was completely sealed off. Who is it? The lady in a purple robe shouted. Viram. The four figures appeared in front of the boat and the four pairs of eyes looked at the beautiful lady in a purple robe. This is Emperor Bai? The beautiful lady in a purple robe's face changed. Didn't Emperor Bai ask Master to go over? Why is he suddenly here and he has purposely sealed off the surrounding space-time? Could it be? The beautiful lady in a purple robe thought of a possibility and she was terrified at heart. But she remained composed. Greetings Emperor Bai. Greetings misters. I wonder how can I help all of you? I'd like to ask you something about Zisu, Emperor Bai said frankly. Mr. Emperor Bai, you must be kidding. Regarding things about my master, you should ask my master directly. I believe my master would definitely answer every question of yours. The beautiful lady in a purple robe answered with a smile. You're not willing to answer? Humph, just as expected. Emperor Bai smiled coldly. Then he took out a crimson pearl. The crimson pearl gave out a mysterious aura. The mysterious aura was soul power. Go. With Emperor Bai's will, the soul power in the crimson pearl instantly burst out. *T. The beautiful lady in a purple robe's face changed and she wanted to resist. However, her power stood no chance to struggle before Emperor Bai. She could only watch as the soul power invaded her head. Her body quivered and there was a flash of struggle in her eyes. But she instantly calmed down again. Mr. Emperor Bai, what is this? Jianghu looked over suspiciously. This is a unique treasure I got from an ancient battlefield long ago. It contains soul power that could straightaway control someone for a short time for the person to obey your instructions. Of course, the treasure is only useful to experts below Great Emperor level. Plus, this person is merely Zizu's follower and she wasn't soul-controlled by Zisu. Otherwise, the treasure wouldn't be effective on her. Emperor Bai smiled. Then, his gaze redirected to the beautiful lady in a purple robe again. Tell me. I want to know everything about Zisu. Yes. The beautiful lady in a purple robe nodded blankly. Then she started telling him the ins and outs of the story. The beautiful lady in a purple robe who was controlled by Emperor Bai naturally handed over everything she knew on a silver platter. Emperor Bai Jianghu, Abysmal Saint Master and Ancestor Chen listened carefully. In the beginning they were calm and composed. However, as the story developed, the four of them looked to be in distress. In the end, the four of their faces grew grave. Great Emperor Zisu was really the spy that Acheron Palace had placed within Sanctuary Alliance. It was verified by the beautiful lady in a purple robe's speech. Over the years, Great Emperor Zisu had also killed some top geniuses secretly using various methods in Eternal Chaotic World. Actually, most of the assassination was carried out by Acheron Palace. However, there were times when it was inconvenient for Acheron Palace to take action due to some unique reasons. Then Great Emperor Zisu would take care of it on its behalf. During the years when he was a higher-up in Sanctuary Alliance, the number of assassinated top geniuses was far beyond what Ancestor Chen and Emperor Bai had found. However, the fact that Great Emperor Zisu was a spy and the issue geniuses that Great Emperor Zisu had assassinated over the years was not what pissed the four of them off. They were truly shocked and angry that the beautiful lady in a purple robe had brought up another force. Vientiane Tower. The #1 chamber of commerce that was widely acknowledged in Eternal Chaotic World. No matter if it was selling information, treasure, resources or even offering assassination services, Vientiane Tower was known to be #1. And they were greatly related to Great Emperor Zisu. The reason why Great Emperor Zisu could kill so many top experts secretly without anyone in Eternal Chaotic World knowing and the higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance never suspecting him was that Vientiane Tower was involved to remove all traces he left behind. There were even times when Great Emperor Zisu could have removed the geniuses successfully because Vientiane Tower catalyzed the process. Great Emperor Zisu and Vientiane Tower looked like they had no relations but they were closely knitted. What did it mean? It meant that Vientiane Tower was also a force that Acheron Palace and Holocaust Sect had placed in Eternal Chaotic World. Vientiane Tower. Emperor Bai bellowed and his voice reverberated through the surrounding universe. Jianghu, Abysmal Saint Master and Ancestor Chen were angry too. Vientiane Tower as the #1 chamber of commerce? Just how high was their position in Eternal Chaotic World? How powerful were they? If the widely acknowledged #1 force in Sanctuary Alliance was Lineage of Star, the strongest force that didn't belong to Sanctuary Alliance in the human region over the years was no doubt Vientiane Tower. Vientiane Tower possessed power and a foundation that was sufficient for Divine King Island, Soaring Heaven King Palace and other top forces to look up to it. How could such a great force be on the enemy's side? No wonder Vientiane Tower isn't willing to join Sanctuary Alliance. On the surface, they say that they don't want to get involved in the affairs. In actual fact, the information that they are trading stirs up great massacres and fights within eternal chaotic world. The assassin department has assassinated many experts and geniuses of eternal chaotic world over the years. Although they're not fighting, every single movement of theirs will stir up a bloody massacre in eternal chaotic world. Ancestor Tian Chen's voice was cold and it contained boundless murderous intention. Chapter 2059 Irrefutable Evidence. 2059 Irrefutable Evidence. Vientiane Tower was too great of a power in eternal chaotic world and they were greatly involved. Although they didn't scramble for supremacy, every single one of their movements was enough to affect the entire eternal chaotic world. Just like back when Wu Bai's cave came into creation, all forces and geniuses fought over it. It was Vientiane Tower's work. For example, news about the Star Palace Master's death spread from Vientiane Tower too. Hence, it had stirred up the three alliances that rushed to lineage of Star. There were many fights and massacres that seemed to be instigated by Vientiane Tower. On the surface, Vientiane Tower looked like they did it for their own benefit. Then it seemed like Vientiane Tower purposely sowed discord among the people and the experts in eternal chaotic world killed each other. It had indirectly diminished the overall power of eternal chaotic world. Let me ask you, the mysterious expert that I met back when I returned from Emperor Sword Sect, was he sent by Zisu? Jianghu Shuang asked in a low voice. Yes, the beautiful lady in purple robe nodded. Then her figure turned illusory and her appearance and temperament immediately changed. The beautiful lady in the purple robe suddenly turned into a brawny elder in black with tan skin. Jianghu Shuang recognized at first glance that the scrawny elder was the boatman in black who had wanted to kill him back then. As expected, Jianghu Shuang's gaze turned cold. Temperament and appearance can be changed. This secret skill is extraordinary. Emperor Bai stared at the boatman in black in front of him. Then he waved and the boatman in black vanished into thin air without a chance to struggle. Then Emperor Bai looked at Ancestor Tian Chen. There is irrefutable evidence. Let's take action. Not only Zisu but also Vientiane Tower. They must be uprooted. Mr. Emperor Bai, don't worry. Although Vientiane Tower has been careful in their actions, Sanctuary Alliance found out where their old lair is long ago. We should either stay put or well destroy it the moment we attack, Ancestor Tian Chen said. That's great. Immediately gather all great emperors for discussion. On top of that, keep watch of Zisu. Emperor Bai commanded and the four of them left. Sanctuary Alliance was in Presbytery Pavilion where they usually held the highest meeting on Thunderbolt Island. Many great emperors arrived either personally or in their consciousness embodiments. Including Jianghu Shuang, Sanctuary Alliance had 14 great emperors then and there were 13 of them there. The only one who never came was naturally Great Emperor Zisu. The great emperors were confused as to why Emperor Bai would gather everyone to discuss. Could it be that Three Emperors World was planning anything major again? Everyone is here. Let's begin. Emperor Bai beckoned to Ancestor Tian Chen. Ancestor Tian Chen stood up and looked around. Then he spoke in a bright and clear voice. Everyone, I believe that many of you noticed something fishy during the mission to Three Emperors World. That's right, there is a double agent amongst the higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance. The great emperor's eyes dilated in shock when they heard that. But most of them weren't surprised. Previously, when the four members' experts troops were in Three Emperors World, there had been too many coincidences. On top of that, there was the incident at Bronze Heart region. There was no doubt that there was a spy amongst the higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance. Everyone knew it but no one spoke about it. Ancestor Tian Chen paused and said, after I investigated with Mr. Emperor Bai for the past 20 years, we are sure of the spy's identity. Everyone, please take a look. Ancestor Tian Chen immediately took out all the evidence that he gathered, including the mirror image of when they had questioned the beautiful lady in purple at the estate, so that everyone could go through them. The great emperors looked through them and his face grew grave. Zisu, Great Emperor Zisu was the spy? Tim? Great Emperor Zisu is so laid back and he doesn't concern himself about worldly affairs. Who would have expected him to be Acheron Palace's spy and to have removed so many top geniuses in eternal chaotic world? The great emperors were angry. Although some of them were friends with Great Emperor Zisu, their friendship vanished when they found out Great Emperor Zizu's identity. It was replaced with billowing hatred. *MN. My disciple, he was the one who killed him? There was an angry roar that reverberated in Presbytery Pavilion. Everyone looked at East Royal Emperor who was raging with anger, but everyone was very understanding. The top genius back then, Lord Hatred, had been East Royal Disciple's lineal disciple and he was his proudest disciple. However, he had died in the end. East Royal disciple was in extreme grief. Now, having found out the true murderer of his disciple, he was of course furious. Besides Zisu there is Vientiane Tower. They are the enemy's spies. There is irrefutable evidence. Emperor Bei's gaze was cold as it swept over them. I gathered everyone here so that everyone can take action together and uproot Vientiane Tower in the shortest time together. The great emperors looked solemn and raging with murderous intention. Tianxian, go ahead and make arrangements. Destroy every single branch of Vientiane Tower within eternal chaotic world, Emperor Bai commanded. Yes, Ancestor Tianxian nodded heavily. Jianghu Shuang Red Dragon Abysmal East Royal. Emperor Bai called out the great emperor's names and said, the few of you follow me to take a trip to the old lair of Vientiane Tower. Yes, Jianghu Shuang and the other few great emperors accepted his command. All great emperors quickly took action. The huge robot and Sanctuary Alliance started running. In the 10 cultivation sanctuaries, the sanctuary masters commanded and the sanctuaries started attacking the Vientiane Tower branch. On the other hand, Emperor Bai and the other few great emperors rushed to Vientiane Tower's old lair. Vientiane Tower's old lair was not located within the 10 cultivation sanctuaries but in a remote, dark void that was further away from the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. When they arrived in the dark void, the Vientiane Tower's old lair was operating as usual. Then Emperor Bai found irrefutable evidence and decided to take action against Vientiane Tower. He rushed to Vientiane Tower at the first moment, and even Vientiane Tower with the greatest intelligence agency couldn't respond in time. Plus, they had yet to find out that Sanctuary Alliance had already prepared to take action against them. Vientiane Tower, as the #1 chamber of commerce in eternal chaotic world, possesses an extraordinary foundation. In terms of almighties, they have more than 30 of them. In Vientiane Tower there is also a great emperor. Emperor Bei's face looked cold. In eternal chaotic world, not including Jianghu Shuang, there were 15 great emperors. 13 of them were in Sanctuary Alliance while the other 2 weren't. But in the dark there were many hidden experts. However, the experts hardly showed up. Hence they were unknown. The hidden experts in Vientiane Tower should be quite numerous. Chapter 2060 Strike Like Thunder. 2060 Strike Like Thunder. The great emperor over the Vientiane Tower, I've dealt with him previously. The Red Dragon King said. His ability is considered average amongst the other great emperors, along with the fact that his self-defense mechanism isn't very strong. It won't take much to kill him. The only point to be wary of is his soul ignition. Leave this great emperor to me. Y'all take care of those almighties at the tower, don't let a single one escape, Emperor Bai muttered. I, Jianghu Shuang and the rest nodded. The people began their work immediately. Hong. An abrupt, ear-shattering roar could be heard. The protective array over at the tower's lair could not withstand one blow from Emperor Bai, bursting immediately. The peace and tranquility within Vientiane Tower shattered along with it. Who was that? What's happening? One by one, figures appeared. Upon witnessing the broken array, the experts within the tower were both startled and angered. Right after that, they saw several figures entering through the broken array, pouring themselves in. These people gave off the scent of absolute horror. They were obviously super experts of the great emperor level. Whoosh! An old figure suddenly appeared at the void above the tower. This gray-clothed elder had to be the only great emperor-level expect around. This is Emperor Bai? The elder gasped in horror upon seeing the white-haired, white-eyed man. Emperor Bai roared. After investigations conducted by the Sanctuary Alliance, the Vientiane Tower was placed within the eternal chaotic world by the villainous Acheron Palace. The evidence is clear. Today Vientiane Tower falls. Death without mercy for all experts. Emperor Bei's fearsome roar rang and echoed all around the lair, leaving the experts within the tower pale with fright. They found out? The gray-clothed elder's eyes drooped. He had just thought of his next course of action, only to realize Emperor Bai was already in front of him. Die. Without further words, Emperor Bai made his move. His brutal punch swung out with a bang, destroying everything in its path before reaching the gray-clothed elder. That made the elder's hair stand on end. Having heard in the past how terrifying Emperor Bai was, he naturally gave everything he had to block him. Pong. A mellow roar. The elder's face turned white instantly as he coughed up blood. He had taken a bad hit. But, to survive a punch from Emperor Bai was worth being proud of already, regardless of its strength. Arga. With a fearsome roar, the elder's boundless soul power was burning madly. With death inevitable, he would give everything he has with his soul ignition for one last battle. However, even though the soul ignition had massively improved his combat ability to a whole new level, against Emperor Bai the Elder stood no chance to retaliate. It only took a couple hits for the Elder to be neutralized by Emperor Bai. Before he died, the Elder had only used 1/3 of his soul power. Even the strongest Great Emperor was annihilated by Emperor Bai's thunder-like strikes. The remaining experts left at the tower were taken aback upon witnessing it. As Jian Wushuang, Red Dragon King, Great Emperor Colored Glaze and others barged into the tower amongst the experts, a massacre ensued like wolves among sheep. The tower had its share of experts, but against these great emperors there was no place for resistance. Within moments, half of the experts were destroyed. Mercy, have mercy, my fellow lords. We were not aware of the relationship between Acheron Palace and the tower, nor have we pledged allegiance to the palace. A cry for mercy surfaced. As one sounded off, the rest followed, all stating that they too were not aware of the relationship. Most of them really were not aware, and had seen themselves as members of the eternal chaotic world the entire time. Seeing this, Jian Wushuang and the others stopped the massacre, and gazed upon Emperor Bai. But Emperor Bai was cold-hearted as one could ever be. Even if there were indeed innocent or ignorant people within the tower has its fair share of moles and spies from the palace. We of the Sanctuary Alliance are not able to distinguish them, nor do we have the time. Desperate times, desperate measures. I would rather kill all than let one mole escape. Die. Determination could be felt from Emperor Bai's voice. The gaze of Jian Wushuang and others turned ice cold. They agreed with Emperor Bai. The Sanctuary Alliance was busy preparing for battle against the Three Emperors' world. There was no way they had the time or effort to investigate and sort out who was innocent, and who was not. To kill them all would be the simpler solution. Even if they had killed a few people by mistake, so be it. Jian Wushuang and others started their massacre again, only this time with unseen resolve. No. The cries and screams of the experts were everywhere within the tower. Against the Great Emperor's death was the only way out. Soon after, the great lair within the tower had quietened down, leaving only corpses and pools of blood. So many experts within the tower, not just the Almighties but also the real gods, cleanly wiped out under Jian Wushuang's blade. After the job was done, they rendezvoused with Emperor Bai. As the lair falls, the remaining parts of the tower can easily be destroyed by the Sanctuary Alliance forces. The tower is finally gone. Abysmal Saint Master said. This is just the surface of Vientiane Tower's power. As the top Merchants Association, the top Intelligence Agency, and the top Killer Association, the tower must have sent many experts to infiltrate our Sanctuary Alliance forces. These maggots, we will dig out as many as we can and exterminate them, Emperor Bai said coldly. Jian Wushuang and the rest nodded. Now that the tower's lair is destroyed, leave the rest to Tianqin. Next we need to handle Zisu. Emperor Bai pulled a long face. Jian Wushuang, Red Dragon, you two follow me. Abysmal, East Royal, you'll all help Tianqin with eliminating the remaining Vientiane Tower forces. Aye. The great emperors responded in unison, taking off shortly after. Under Emperor Bai's lead, Jian Wushuang was once again brought to the enormous manor Great Emperor Zisu stayed in. Great Emperor Zisu, he didn't escape? Jian Wushuang stood at the void outside the manor, puzzled. This is the eternal chaotic world, the Sanctuary Alliance calls the shots. I had Tianqin keep an eye on him way back ago. You think he could escape even if he wanted to? Emperor Bai sniggered. That makes sense. Jian Wushuang realized. In the realm of the Sanctuary Alliance, under close watch by Emperor Bai himself? Even if Great Emperor Zisu wanted to run, he would not have known how. Chapter 2061 Great Emperor Zisu? 2061 Great Emperor Zisu? Jian Wushuang, your power has improved significantly while you were in the Three Emperors world. Aside from me, you are the strongest in the Sanctuary Alliance. I shall leave Zisu to you, said Emperor Bai. Sure. I am very keen to fight Great Emperor Zisu. Jian Wushuang pursed his lips as his eyes lit up with excitement. Follow him, Red Dragon King, Emperor Bai commanded. Yes, replied the Red Dragon King, as he rushed inside the manor together with Jian Wushuang. The manor looked like a heavenly paradise. On the inside, a lone boat drifted aimlessly in the river. Great Emperor Zisu sat on the boat lazily and was fishing in a laid-back manner. Jian Wushuang and the Red Dragon King appeared in front of the lone boat. How can you, Great Emperor Zisu, still fish after all that happened? Great Emperor Zisu rolled his eyes as he looked at Jian Wushuang and smiled. What else do you want me to do? He replied. He guessed that the Sanctuary Alliance had found out that he was the spy the moment his follower had died, and would definitely kill him. Sadly, he knew that he could not escape even if he wanted to. Hence, he might as well sit there quietly and wait for the arrival of the experts from the Sanctuary Alliance. Why is it only two of you? Where is Emperor Bai? Great Emperor Zisu asked indifferently. You do not deserve the personal attention of Emperor Bai. He sent us to deal with you. He has no time, Jian Wushuang said coldly. Is that the case? Do you really think that the two of you can kill me? Great Emperor Zisu scoffed. How will we know if we don't try? Jian Wushuang replied abruptly. Boom. A wave of monstrous divine might radiated from Jian Wushuang and spread out in all directions. The surrounding river waters exploded and instantly rose to heights so great that the silt beneath the river water could be seen. The boat under the feet of Great Emperor Zisu exploded to pieces instantly. Jian Wushuang attacked. Phew, 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 phew. 5 beams of sparkling golden light lit up and burst forth at high speed. These 5 beams of light originated from the Hongjun golden sword that Jian Wushuang wielded. There were only 5 swords, and Jian Wushuang's understanding of the power of spacetime was limited to a peak of 8 stories in Doctrine Palace. Despite this, the power generated was greatly different from before, as the Hongjun golden sword that Jian Wushuang had used employed the power of spacetime. Jian Wushuang, who was on the second stage, had divine power far greater than that of a normal great emperor. Each of the Hongjun golden sword would force any great emperor to go all out, much less when 5 of these swords were used together. As the great emperor Zisu saw the 5 beams of light strike towards him, he smiled indifferently as he drew a purple spear that radiated death. Even though each stab of the spear looked casual, the speed of the stabs were incredible. Clang, 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 clang. The 5 Hongjun golden sword was deflected and flew back. Just then Jian Wushuang dashed up to Great Emperor Zisu and slashed out using his Blood Mountain sword. Sword slashes that radiated death burst forth. At the edge of the sword, a faded drop of blood was condensing. Sword Principle Shen Luo, Extreme Blood Style. Great Emperor Zisu snorted lightly. His body seemed to turn into nothing as he thrust his spear out lightly. Clang. The collision produced a strong shockwave that would push them back. A hint of ferocity flashed across his eyes as Jian Wushuang changed his sword momentum instantly. Beams of gloomy sword light formed a special arc in the void. Sword Principle Shen Luo turned monstrous with one thought. Scram. The aura of Great Emperor Zisu skyrocketed, as his purple spear radiated an aura of great power. In an instant it turned into a bolt of purple lighting and struck out. The power was so terrifying that it forced Jian Wushuang to take a step back. Jian Wushuang balanced himself. He looked at Great Emperor Zisu in disbelief and said, "Looks like Lord Spirit Sound was right. You concealed your true power, and to such a great extent." Jian Wushuang was well aware that even though he had not gone all out with his swordsmanship in the last attack, he had used about 70% of his divine power. Even if it was just 70%, the power was far greater than that of most great emperors. Great Emperor Zisu not only deflected his attack with ease, he also had the ability to force him back. His power was far greater than even that of the abysmal Saint Master. Jian Wushuang had gauged that Great Emperor Zisu was not weaker than the brutish bald man Ling Zong, whom had met in Three Emperors' World. Do you really think that the Red Dragon King deserved to be ranked second on the Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list? I was just too afraid that people would grow suspicious of me having power that is too strong. On Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list, Great Emperor Zisu was ranked 5th on the list for great emperors. Higher up in the list included people like Emperor Bai, Red Dragon King, Abysmal Saint Master and Ancestor Tianqin. In reality, only Emperor Bai posed a threat to him. The other 3 were not strong enough for him to care. I want to know how strong you really are. Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up as his sword essence rose. His divine power erupted as he attacked Great Emperor Zisu. Jian Wushuang battled Great Emperor Zisu fiercely. He continued to put crazy amounts of pressure on Great Emperor Zisu by fully utilizing his swordsmanship. Furthermore, he had the aid of the 5 Hongjun golden swords. Great Emperor Zisu had a layer of shiny purple crystals around himself and looked as though he was a ghost. His fighting power was also astonishing. He was only at a slight disadvantage even though he was taking Jian Wushuang head-on. It's important to note that in the Three Emperors world, Jian Wushuang could take on 13 great emperors at once. The power of Zisu is stronger than what I imagined. He is slightly stronger than Ling Zong, Jian Wushuang thought. Jian Wushuang could completely dominate Ling Zong in a head-on battle. However, against Great Emperor Zisu, he only had a slight advantage. Since you could destroy the Supreme Emperor Stone and walk out of Three Emperors World alive, your fighting power is much more powerful than before. Many of the great emperors in the Sanctuary Alliance believe that your fighting power is the closest to Emperor Bai's. It seems like this is indeed true. It's a pity that even though your fighting power is strong, it is only slightly above mine. You can barely oppress me, so don't even think of killing me. Great Emperor Zisu laughed hysterically. Jian Wushuang's face darkened. However, the Red Dragon King, who was not involved in the fight, moved. An overbearing aura, which was mixed with an unbelievable amount of bloodline power, erupted. This aura was so strong that even Jian Wushuang looked over. Chapter 2062 Slain. 2062 Slain. Red Dragon. Jian Wushuang watched the Red Dragon King in astonishment. He could feel the aura around the Red Dragon King, especially that unique bloodline power. Even Jian Wushuang himself dared not underestimate it. Wasn't the Red Dragon King's power on par with the Abysmal Saint Masters? But now it was obvious to Jian Wushuang, the Red Dragon King had surpassed the Abysmal Saint Master. Had gone above and beyond. Haha, from the looks of it, I'm not the only great emperor that hid their true power in the Sanctuary Alliance, huh? Great Emperor Zisu let out a hearty laugh. Chinjish, I only achieved a breakthrough not too long ago and I did not get a chance to demonstrate my power, so no one knew. But you're different. You had so much power from the very beginning, but intentionally kept it hidden from us. You thought it through? The Red Dragon King's irises constricted. With an aura of death radiating around him, even his movements became forceful. Sword Emperor, together, let's take him down. Jian Wushuang nodded. With all the strength they had, they made their move. Jian Wushuang alone could not have fully suppressed Great Emperor Zisu, but collaborating with the Red Dragon King. The Red Dragon King demonstrated astonishing skills, especially with the ancient Dragon Clan bloodline he possessed, making his power extremely formidable. In terms of battle skills, he was only slightly weaker than Jian Wushuang, but more than enough to battle Great Emperor Zisu. With both of them joining forces, Great Emperor Zisu naturally could not resist further, and was eventually suppressed. Whether it was Jian Wushuang or the Red Dragon King, both their bloodline powers and divine powers were much more vigorous and copious than Great Emperor Zisus. If the battle went on any further, Great Emperor Zisu would most certainly die. Aha! To hell with the both of you! A formidable roar let out as Great Emperor Zisu finally began his frenzy. His soul power burnt rapidly. Soul ignition? Jian Wushuang's face darkened. He knew clearly how terrifying a great emperor who used soul ignition could become. Great Emperor Ji Luo had used soul ignition and the secret skills of Star Palace to fend off the many great emperors from the Three Emperors world, gaining precious time for Jian Wushuang back then. But Great Emperor Zisu was so much more powerful than Ji Luo. Boom. Frenzied Great Emperor Zisu, having used soul ignition, appeared in front of Red Dragon King almost immediately. Red Dragon, watch out. Jian Wushuang tried to warn him. A merciless spear pierced through heaven and earth, causing the void to explode to form a spacetime storm. This storm ravaged the entire manor. Once heaven on earth, the manor was now no more than rubble. Against such a powerful spear, the Red Dragon King gave everything to resist, but it was not enough. With a loud thud, the Red Dragon King was thrown back, his body trembling after such a tremor. He was left largely unhurt, thankfully. Jian Wushuang's gaze was sharp-eyed like a razor. Power from within his body was emerging as more heads and limbs popped out from him. Bring it on, Zisu. Jian Wushuang let out a roar. Within a few moves he was in front of Great Emperor Zisu, his swordsmanship mercilessly used to cut Zisu down. Under normal circumstances, Great Emperor Zisu's death was already inevitable, having used soul ignition. There was no need to go hard on Zisu, simply avoid his blows and wait for the soul ignition to end. But Jian Wushuang, he had no fear. Against the frenzied Great Emperor Zisu, he insisted on going hard as an unbridled battle pursued. Earth-shattering roars echoed through the air, as if the sky was on the brink of collapse. The battle ensued for several breaths of time. Finally, Great Emperor Zisu's aura diminished, the light from his eyes dimmed, and soon he could not be heard. The spy of the Acheron Palace, fifth in the Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list, had fallen. Is he finally dead? Jian Wushuang was still standing in the void as he watched Great Emperor Zisu's lifeless body fall from the sky, displaying no expression of any sort. His aura remained strong. You must know, even during his encounter with Demon King Chen Yu in the Three Emperors world, he managed to stay energized throughout the entire battle thanks to his strong power from within himself. Great Emperor Zisu could use soul ignition to gain that temporary burst of energy all he wanted, but compared to Demon King Qinyu, it was barely enough. Jian Wushuang had only fought him for several breaths of time, and naturally Wushuang emerged unscathed. Red Dragon King appeared beside Jian Wushuang. As he gazed upon Great Emperor Zizu's corpse, Red Dragon King could not help but gasp in admiration. Sword Emperor, what a marvelous feat. The ancient Dragon Clan bloodline, my strength and self-defense mechanisms have made me extremely powerful. But even I, faced against the frenzied Great Emperor Zisu, having ignited his own soul, could not do much but retreat. But you faced him head-on and emerged without a scratch. I guess what Zisu said was right. Amongst the great emperors in the Sanctuary Alliance, your power is the closest to Emperor Bai's. Second in rank amongst the Heaven and Earth Supremes, definitely goes to you. Having heard this, Jian Wushuang could not help but laugh. He was not interested in rankings after all. A figure precipitated. Emperor Bai had arrived too. Emperor Bai, Jian Wushuang and Red Dragon King immediately turned around. Emperor Bai glanced upon Jian Wushuang, a trace of a smile playing across his lips. Not bad Wushuang, such fighting power at the second stage, so much stronger than me when I first began. Emperor Bai had nothing but praise for Jian Wushuang. The reason why he had sent Jian Wushuang and Red Dragon King to take down Great Emperor Zisu was also because he wanted to witness Jian Wushuang's capabilities. And Jian Wushuang had indeed proved himself. It's only a shame you're lacking in Tao realization for you to ascend to Doctrine Palace's 9th level, which is the standard for all great emperors. Otherwise, you would have been the top amongst the second stage great emperors. Emperor Bai heaved a sigh. Second stage great emperors? Jian Wushuang was puzzled. What do you mean by that, Emperor Bai? You mean there are levels and ranks even amongst great emperors? You didn't know? Emperor Bai looked at Jian Wushuang astonished, nodding soon after. Makes sense anyway. You've improved so quickly, and you've only reached great emperor so recently, it's only natural you lack this area of knowledge. Let me explain it to you. Jian Wushuang fixed his attention on him, listening closely. Wushuang, you've encountered many great emperors in the Three Emperors world, amongst them were extremely powerful ones, power even comparable to Demon King Qinyu's level. You can tell even though they are all great emperors in terms of ability, the disparity is clear, right? Emperor Bai smiled. Chapter 2063 Stage Division. 2063 Stage Division. Jian Wushuang nodded immediately. He was curious and wanted to know more. Between great emperors there could be a great difference in power level. In the Sanctuary Alliance, except for Emperor Bai, the difference in power level between most great emperors was small. However, Jian Wushuang met Ling Zong and the massive middle-aged man in Three Emperors world. Both had power far greater than any of the great emperors. Great emperors such as Abysmal Saint Master, who might have been the strongest in the Sanctuary Alliance, were still much weaker than people like Ling Zong. Jian Wushuang, Red Dragon King and Great Emperor Zisu, who was just killed, were already much stronger than people like Abysmal Saint Master, much less superpowers the Demon King Qinyu and Emperor Bai. However, Demon King Qinyu and Emperor Bai were still at the level of Great Emperor no matter how strong they were. In today's eternal chaotic world, there is no division between the different levels of Great Emperor as there are too few Great Emperors in the Second Era. I estimate there to be around 20 or so in this world. I came from the First Era, which was much more powerful than the Second. Emperor Bai smiled. In the First Era, the number of people who were at the Great Emperor level ranged from the hundreds to even thousands. The difference in power was obvious due to the sheer number of Great Emperors that were around. Hence, the superpowers in the First Era split the Great Emperor level into 3 stages. The stage where most people are is Stage 1, which all the ordinary Great Emperors from back then fall under. Their understanding of Tao has reached the 9th level in the Doctrine Palace. Aside from me, Red Dragon King and you, the rest of the Great Emperors fall into Stage 1 of Great Emperors. People such as Master of Abysmal Palace and Ancestor Tianqin are the strongest among them. The first stage of Great Emperor was the most commonly seen in the First Era. More than 90% of the Great Emperors fall into this stage. On the other hand, Great Emperors from the second stage were all exceptional. Jian Wushuang looked at Emperor Bai attentively. Great Emperors from this stage had a better understanding of Tao and their divine power were far greater than those in the first. Most importantly, these emperors mastered secret skills of terrifying power, or possessed unique bloodline power which enabled them to have fighting power far greater than those in Stage 1. For example, the Red Dragon King has the bloodline power of an ancient dragon clan. That is the reason he is a Stage 2 Great Emperor, Emperor Bai said. I was lucky to inherit the bloodline power on the ancient battlefield. My fighting power skyrocketed once this bloodline power awakened not too long ago. Red Dragon King smiled. Jian Wushuang finally understand the division between the stages in the Great Emperor. There were few great emperors who had been in that stage back in the First Era. All of them were overlords in the First Era, and every single one was a ruler of a certain empire, especially those who were the most powerful in Stage 2. Even though great emperors classified as Stage 2 were monsters, it was those who were classified as Stage 3 that were at the top of this food chain. The leap between Stage 2 and Stage 3 is where the true abilities of the great emperors are tested. From what I know, there were only so many Stage 1 great emperors back in the First Era. Even during the Prime period, the number of Stage 1 great emperors was no more than 30. The best among them were Ancient God Emperor and Sword Emperor Dugu, who also happened to be the most famous. The reason for the huge difference in power level between Stage 2 and Stage 3 great emperors was not only due to the secret skills they mastered, but also because these Stage 1 emperors managed to understand a little of the rules of order. Rules of order? Jian Wushuang widened his eyes as his heart skipped a beat. Judging by your reaction, I assume that you have heard of this? Emperor Bai said as he looked at Jian Wushuang in disbelief. Yes, I did. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. He remembered the opportunity he had received in the standalone space within 8th layer. There, he had met an ancient expert who was in slumber as well as a dragon turtle. Longqi. Back then, Longqi had asked him to meditate with the 7-star picture. In ancient times, the 7-star picture had been used by disciples of the 7-star Black Sect to mediate in order to understand the rules of order. Jian Wushuang had learned of the rules of order in this world. Back then, these powers had been too complex for him to comprehend, so he had not asked for any explanation. Now he was hearing of rules of order again. Rule or order is the absolute power that the Heaven Way harnesses to run itself. It represents the law of the universe. The Tao that we are meditating to now, such as 9 Heaven God Doctrine and Supreme Four Doctrine, will eventually evolve into rules of order. Once this power is mastered, there will be a leap in the quality of your power. This increase in quality will be much better compared to when the power of Heaven Way was initially mastered by the first universe God. This is exactly why the Stage 3 great emperors who manage to grasp even a little of rules of order will have fighting power far greater than those great emperors from State 2. Demon King Chenyu, who you met in 3 Emperors World, is a Stage 3 great emperor. Emperor Bai said. Jian Wushuang was shocked. Demon King Chenyu? He had fought the Demon King Chenyu head-on before. His power level was far from that of the Demon King. He could see how strong the Demon King Chenyu was from how Jian Wushuang could barely keep the Demon King occupied even with the aid of a self-defense mechanism and the unique constitution that inverse cultivation gave him. He simply ran for his life and did not dare to fight the Demon King head-on. Demon King Chenyu has managed to grasp a little of the rules of order. His secret skills are not very outstanding. He has just barely made the cut as a Stage 3 great emperor, hence his fighting power is not that insane. However, Lord Fun, who rules the Holocaust sect, is even stronger. He has the true power of a Stage 3 emperor. Jian Wushuang finally understood the stage division among the great emperors. Jian Wushuang muttered to himself, Great emperors are divided into 3 stages. Those in the first stage are ordinary and the weakest of them all. On the other hand, those in Stage 3 grasp a little of the rules of order and are very powerful. As for me, I am probably an ordinary Stage 2 emperor. My power is still far from that of a Stage 3. In fact, these 3 stages were only a division set back in the First Era. After these stages there should still be a Stage 4, Emperor Bai said out of nowhere. Chapter 2064 The Fourth Stage. 2064 The Fourth Stage. A fourth stage. Jian Wushuang's were wide open. The third stage great emperors were terrifying enough, having grasped even a bit of rules of order. The elite Ancient God Emperor and Sword Emperor Dugu of the First Era were considered the pinnacle of third stage great emperors. Now there was a fourth stage. A fourth stage did not exist during the First Era. I added it at the last moment. Emperor Bai smiled. Oh really? Jian Wushuang was surprised. Wushuang, you must understand the second era we live in now, even though there's a vast difference in cultivating environments compared to in the first, one point remains the same. The cultivators of both eras were constricted by the boundaries of this universe. This constriction targets the strongest, Emperor Bai continued. The elite Ancient God Emperor and Sword Emperor Dugu of the First Era had most certainly surpassed Great Emperor levels into something much more, but why do I still regard them as only Great Emperors? The constrictions the universe places upon us forces all cultivators to utilize no more strength than a great emperor can. Jian Wushuang was startled. He knew about a legend of the First Era, an expert above all great emperors. Ancient God Emperor was a 10-star ancient god. According to ancient god clan divisions, 9 stars would make you a great emperor, 10 stars therefore naturally surpassed great emperors, ascending beyond the chaotic realm. But now it seemed even though he was technically stronger than great emperors, there was really not much difference. Experts stronger than great emperors in the First Era remained great emperors due to the constrictions, but what about the ancient past? There were so many experts stronger than great emperors during that period of time. Imagine if those supreme beings were to awaken. What would happen? Jian Wushuang was once again taken aback. Experts from the ancient past. Emperor Bai, if these experts from the ancient past were to awaken, would they face the same constrictions the universe places? Jian Wushuang assaked. Of course, our universe is special this way. Everyone in this universe faces the same constrictions, even the experts from the ancient past. Meaning to say, no matter how powerful you were in the ancient past, even if you were one of the best, as long as you're under this universe, you can only be treated as a great emperor. However, these experts from the ancient past, even though they face the same constrictions, the myriad of means and secret skills they possess, along with their realization of the rules of order, they remained with them. You can only imagine, even if they had great emperor-level powers, that explosive energy, how strong would that be? Forget the others for now, let's talk about that ancient past expert who helped you before, Emperor 13. You can tell how powerful he was, right? Emperor Bai said solemnly. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang could not help but draw a cold breath. He understood what Emperor Bai meant. Under the constrictions of the universe, they could only use great emperor-level powers, but the ancient past experts, possessing realization of the rules of order and other secret skills. The first and second eras were not even comparable. The elite ancient god emperor and sword emperor Dugu of the First Era had only just surpassed the great emperor level. In terms of fighting power, they were simply the pinnacle of the third stage. There were so many experts from the ancient past stronger than ancient god emperor and sword emperor Dugu. Even with the same level of strength constricted by the universe, the experts would certainly surpass them in their explosive fighting power. Emperor 13 belonged to the ranks of these formidable ancient past experts. Because of these ancient past experts, especially after my encounter with Emperor 13, came the thought of the fourth stage. Without a doubt, Emperor 13 is a fourth stage great emperor, Emperor Bai said. Jian Wushuang nodded solemnly, and from this gained a whole new perspective of Emperor Bai. The 3 stages of great emperors, if you consider the ancient past experts, would make it 4 stages. 4 stages, meaning 4 completely different levels of power. The disparities between each stage was ridiculously huge. The reason why there was not much difference between great emperors within the Sanctuary Alliance was because they were all first-stage great emperors. Even the best of the first-stage great emperors, the abysmal Saint Mster, would find it hard to take down Yen Zun, currently at the bottom of the first stage. But if a second-stage expert were to come in, things would be different. A third or fourth stage great emperor would take down a first-stage great emperor as if he was killing a chicken. Emperor Bai, may I know, amongst the 4 stages, at which stage do you reside? Jian Wushuang suddenly asked. Red Dragon King looked over. They were all curious. As the strongest in the eternal chaotic world, which stage did Emperor Bai belong to? Of course, Emperor Bai, having easily defeated Demon King Chen Yu of the 3rd stage, made him at least on par with the Demon King. Emperor Bai took a while to think it through before replying. My current fighting power places me slightly above Ancient God Emperor and Sword Emperor Dugu of the First Era, but it is limited. When I first faced Emperor 13, I had no idea how nor the necessary confidence to engage him, so I guess him at the top of 3rd stage great emperors or somewhere between the 3rd and 4th. But even though I'll lose to Emperor 13 and the other experts in terms of fighting power, if I were to fight them face to face, with the help of my inverse cultivation and other tricks, even groups of 4th stage great emperors would not scare me. Emperor Bai was ever so confident of himself, yet he hid nothing in regards to his own limitations. Jian Wushuang and Red Dragon King, having heard this, glanced at each other, astonishment and delight written all over their faces. The astonishment came from the fact that Emperor Bai's power was much stronger than they expected it to be. Whereas the delight naturally came from the fact that Emperor Bai was on their side of the battle, and was basically a leader to them. The upcoming battle against the 3 emperors world with Emperor Bai made them much more confident. Jian Wushuang. Emperor Bai looked towards Jian Wushuang. I saw the battle you had against Great Emperor Zisu. Your ability now should be amongst the best within second stage Great Emperors, but not the best. You're still lacking in terms of Tao understanding. If you achieve a breakthrough from that, reaching Doctrine Palace's 9th level, you will emerge as the second stage's best. If you want to reach the 3rd stage, that's fairly simple as well. Continuing to master the final part of Inverse Cultivation's 7th step will suffice, or understand some rules of order. Hearing this, Jianghu Shuang shrugged his shoulders. He had just reached the 2nd stage, barely even reaching Doctrine Palace's 9th level. For him to master the final part of Inverse Cultivation's 7th step, or to understand even a bit of the rules of order, would take ages. Come, let's go back. Without a word, the 3 of them made their way back to Thunderbolt Island. Chapter 2065 Fighting at the Ancient God Clan. 2065 Fighting at the Ancient God Clan. Jian Wushuang, Emperor Bai and the rest attacked the base of Yantian Tower, where they had killed Great Emperor Zisu. Within the eternal chaotic world, branches of Yantian Tower that were located in different places among the tribes and sanctuaries received devastating blows. Even though Vientiane Tower had high social standing and power, it was nothing compared to Sanctuary Alliance. Sanctuary Alliance was the true ruler of the eternal chaotic world. If she wanted a certain force to disappear, no one could stop them. Within months, Vientiane Tower ceased to exist. All that was left were spies within different sects and clans. These cultivators were not strong enough to pose a threat. Furthermore, Sanctuary Alliance had gotten a list of most of these spies when they destroyed Vientiane Tower. These cultivators would also face certain death. The large dark millstone stood tall in the dark void. However, it stopped spinning deep in the 3 Emperors' world in the endless void. Idiot. This Zisu is an idiot. I have already reminded him to be extra careful, as Emperor Bai knew that there was a spy in Sanctuary Alliance. What happened in the end? He exposed himself. To make matters worse, he even exposed Vientiane Tower. Acheron Palace spent so much time and effort on building a Vientiane Tower, and all our efforts went to waste because of this idiot. Demon King Chen Ye's face was dark and he roared in anger. His aura turned extremely violent. This time around, Acheron Palace had lost too much. They had lost both Great Emperor Zisu and Vientiane Tower. Even though Acheron Palace had used large amount of resources to nurture Great Emperor Zisu and to get him to be one of the higher-ups of Sanctuary Alliance, this loss was still acceptable. During the final battle against the eternal chaotic world, his powers as a great emperor had been limited. However, Vientiane Tower was different. It was the #1 information department, given that it was the #1 enterprise within the world and the influence they had was great. During the war, it could pass messages, cause internal fighting among the eternal chaotic world, or change the tide of the war. There would be enormous benefits that could be reaped. Vientiane Tower was much more important to Acheron Palace than Great Emperor Zisu. Now, however, Vientiane Tower was destroyed with nothing left to salvage. All the effort that Acheron Palace had spent over the years had gone to waste. How could the Demon King Chen Yu be not angry when he was the leader? Lung Rushue and Kaiser Blood, who were on the other 2 thrones in the void, were in a bad mood. Acheron Palace planned to insert different people into the eternal chaotic world so that they could be of help during the final battle. Now this plan has been foiled by Sanctuary Alliance. Our chances of winning during the final battle has dropped from 70% to 60%. Lung Rushue said. 60%. Even though there was an advantage, this advantage was no longer distinct. This happened all because of that idiot Zisu. Demon King Chen Yu roared in anger. Now that Zisu is dead, it's pointless trying to blame him. We should be doing our best to prepare for the battle by concentrating our forces properly. Furthermore, we should speed up our plans for the special tribe. Chen Yu, the responsibility of the plans belongs to Acheron Palace. You have to pay close attention. Do not make any errors. Do not worry. The special tribe is different from humans. It is easier to deal with them. Furthermore, Acheron Palace is well prepared and we will not allow for any more accidents. We can settle things there within a century. Demon King Chen Yu said confidently. Do not be overconfident. Lung Rushue glanced over at Demon King Chen Yu. The matters there are of utmost importance. If any more accidents happen, we will have no more advantage. Hence, I have sent some of my people over. Yes. With the help of Holocaust sect, we can be more assured. Kaiser Blood said as he nodded his head in approval. Demon King Chen Yu's face turned a shade darker, but he did not argue. I have some good news for you both. Lung Rushue said. Kaiser Blood and Demon King Chen Yu looked over. 3 days ago, Lord Fen transmitted a message to me. He said that not only has his injury healed fully, but he's also managed to improve his fighting power. Oh. Kaiser Blood laughed. That's great. Now with Lord Fun, our fighting power at the highest level will once again improve. Now our chances of winning are better. However, Demon King Chen squinted his eyes slightly and looked like he was happy. He muttered quietly to himself, Lord Fun became stronger once again? He had an edge over me before his injury. Now that he has become stronger, won't he be able to overpower me? Kaiser Blood is also stronger than me. I am currently the weakest. Damn it. Demon King Chen said nothing more even though he was angry deep down inside. Sanctuary Alliance, Thunderbolt Island, Emperor Bai, are you looking for me? What happened? Jianghu Shuang received the message from Emperor Bai and rushed over. Now that Vientiane Tower is destroyed, the powers that Acheron Palace inserted in Eternal Chaotic World are gone. Our next step is for Sanctuary Alliance to rally the various forces in Eternal Chaotic World and concentrate all the experts. Then we will have the final battle against the Three Emperors World, Holocaust Sect and Acheron Palace that resides in the Dark Millstone, he said to Jianghu Shuang. It is easy to gather the experts in Eternal Chaotic World. With the possible repercussions there could be 99% of the experts will gather here. However, we might encounter some problems with the special tribes. I need you to go down personally. Emperor Bai said. Special tribe. Jianghu Shuang's heart skipped a beat. In the Eternal Chaotic World, there was segregation between human tribe and special tribe. Usually, these two tribes would not interact with each other. However, when the survival of Eternal Chaotic World was at stake, the two tribes would cooperate and work with each other. What will happen with the special tribe? Jianghu Shuang said as he frowned. I do not have the exact details, but there are troubles between the four biggest tribes, especially Ancient God Clan. From what Sanctuary Alliance told me, it seems like the Ancient God Clan is having a civil war right now. Emperor Bai said. What? Jianghu Shuang turned pale. Among the different special tribes, he had a deep connection with the Ancient God Clan. His bloodline of Ancient Clan, was closely related to the Ancient God Clan. But now the Ancient God Clan was having a civil war. Chapter 2066 The Godly Spirit's Metamorphosis. 2066 The Godly Spirit's Metamorphosis. Jianghu Shuang, I know you have a special relationship with the Ancient God Clan. Even the 9-star Ancient God King Luoyu from the clan said they wanted to make you their new Ancient God as part of their clan. The brawl amongst the Ancient God Clan seems to relate you quite a bit, so... Emperor Bai looked at Jianghu Shuang. Since the issue is related to you, you should step out and settle it. Understood, I'll move out now, Jianghu Shuang replied. Okay, if you get yourself into any trouble within that special tribe, inform me. Of course, with your current abilities, most issues shouldn't get in your way, Emperor Bai said. Jianghu Shuang gave a faint smile before taking off. After leaving Thunderbolt Island, Jianghu Shuang was not in a hurry to visit the Ancient God Sanctuary and instead he went back to the Green Fire World. Even though this visit to the special tribe would not take long, the Eternal Chaotic World was under ordinary circumstances. Jianghu Shuang found Hall Master Yuan and Jian Nantian, and left them a few words. Then Jianghu Shuang came to an enormous sea of fog. This was Star Foggy Sea. King of Venomous Worms. Jianghu Shuang's voice resonated across the entire Star Foggy Sea. Soon, the green-robed elder the King of Venomous Worms had appeared in front of Jianghu Shuang. Master. The king was ever so respectful. Since the king had leached onto Jianghu Shuang's body, it was always Jianghu Shuang. Not Master. Today was different. The Jianghu Shuang of today was without a doubt one of the strongest amongst the great emperors, the best the Eternal Chaotic World had, and definitely stronger than his previous master King Luozhen. With that amount of prestige and power, even the King of Venomous Worms had to show Jianghu Shuang some respect. Naturally he called him Master. You're living quite comfortably from the looks of it. Jianghu Shuang looked at the king curiously. Jianghu Shuang had just arrived to witness the king poking fun at one of the fellows in the foggy sea. Oh, how happy he looked. This is all thanks to you, master, the king mocked. And indeed so. As a plenilune, he had previously needed to leech off of an ancient god to survive. But the bloodline of Jianghu Shuang was so much purer than the ancient gods, the king only needed to leech for a short period of time, extract some ancient god blood essence, and he would live for 10,000 years or even 100,000 years by himself. With the blood essence, he could morph into a human, moving freely amongst many cultivators, with no need to stay within Jianghu Shuang's body. Of course he was more comfortable than before. I'm here for you because I need to visit the ancient god's sanctuary. Will you follow? Jianghu Shuang asked. The ancient god's sanctuary? Since you, master, have asked, I will follow, the king agreed without hesitation. Let's go then. Jian Wushuang waved his hand. The king immediately morphed into a mini worm and made his way into Jian Wushuang's body. After the king, Jian Wushuang went to find Jian Yi. Jian Yi, your current skills, have they been restored to what they once were? Jian Wushuang watched Jian Yi. He could feel that subtle aura of power around Jian Yi. That aura surpassed the abysmal Saint Master, probably comparable to second stage great emperors like Great Emperor Zisu and Red Dragon King. Almost there, but soon. A century should be enough for me to fully restore my power, Jian Yi replied. Jian Wushuang could not help but be astonished. Jian Yi now already possessed the fighting power of a second stage great emperor, more or less, but he hadn't reached his true potential yet? When he fully restored his power, how powerful then would he be? Jian Yi, we have split the great emperors of the peak chaotic realm into 4 stages. What stage do you think you'll be once you've fully restored your power? Jian Wushuang gave a brief explanation on how the stage divisions worked. Jian Yi thought through it for a while and replied, at my peak I should be at the top of the second stage or at least near the top. Only the top of the second stage, Jian Wushuang sighed. Not confident to compare yourself with the third stage great emperors? Master, don't tease me, I only follow what you have taught me. Third stage great emperors have all a bit of rules of order. Rules of order. What a noble power that is. Even during the ancient past, when chaotic realms were plentiful, those who could really understand a bit of rules of order were no more than a handful. If I was capable of that, I would have joined some influential organizations and become one of their elite disciples. Not been some nobody who's only good in intelligence, Jian Yi sighed. Oh, that made sense to Jian Wushuang. He too knew that the rules of order were not easy to understand. Okay, you continue to build up your strength here in the Green Fire world. They'll be gone for a while, the responsibility of keeping this place safe now lies with you, Jian Wushuang said. Aye. Jian Yi nodded solemnly and left. After Jian Yi left, Jian Wushuang's expression changed abruptly. Is it finally working? A tinge of delight could be seen on Jian Wushuang's face, as with a flip of his hand he took out a bronze mirror that emitted a unique smell. This bronze mirror was the 5-Fire Godly Spirit Mirror. The 5-Fire Godly Spirit Mirror was a treasure from the ancient past, obtained after Jian Wushuang had slain Emperor God Xing. Back when the Green Fire world was in crisis, and Great Emperor Colored Glaze along with others had charged in, this mirror had provided Jian Wushuang with quite a bit of assistance. The mirror was nurtured with divine power. The stronger the divine power, the better the mirror worked. Back when Jian Wushuang had yet to master the inverse cultivation 7th step, the mirror had been nurtured with divine power, allowing the 5 great godly spirits to all emit peak Emperor God powers, joining hands to form a godly spirit array, enough to fight against a great emperor. But ever since he had mastered the 7th step, there was an evolution in his divine powers. The 5 great godly spirits had also started to metamorphosize. This period of metamorphosis was long, from then all the way to now. Finally it had ended. That was why Jian Wushuang only took the mirror out now. I wonder how strong the mirror is now. With a glimmer of hope, he summoned one godly spirit. A dark shadow appeared. There came along an eerie chill, as if it came from hell itself. This aura was terrifying enough to scare even Jian Wushuang himself. Luckily it was him. If it was a normal real god or Sir God, they would choke in the face of this horrifying aura. The strength of this aura, to a certain extent, also symbolized the power of the godly spirit. Chapter 2067 Returning to Ancient God Sanctuary? 2067 Returning to Ancient God Sanctuary. Judging from the aura, this godly spirit has the power of a great emperor, Jian Wushuang muttered. If one godly spirit alone had so much power, then the battle power of 5 of them when used together would be, looks like I have my hands on another life-saving item. Jian Wushuang smiled. After keeping the godly spirit in the 5-Fire Godly Spirit Mirror, Jian Wushuang set off. The territory that belonged to the special tribes was far away from human territory. Jian Wushuang had spent 10 years on getting to Ancient God Sanctuary initially. As his social status improved, he could use many hidden wormholes within Sanctuary Alliance, which shortened the time needed to travel. He passed through the wormhole and appeared at Ancient God Sanctuary. He did not sense anything different when he arrived back at Ancient God Sanctuary after so many years of absence. However, Jian Wushuang knew that the information that Sanctuary Alliance had was not from wild guesses. There had to be a civil war going on. I should go to Gu King City and ask King Gu Tong and get an update from him on the civil war, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. Within Ancient God clan there were 9 great king cities. Where he was closest to Gu King City. He arrived in the void above Gu King City soon after thanks to how quick he was. Jian Wushuang used his soul power to cover the entire Gu King City. After using his soul power to scan the city, he frowned. What is going on? King Gu Tong, King Gu Yu and King Gu Yi are all missing. Jian Wushuang was suspicious. He came to Gu King City before. This city was controlled by the ancient clan. The master of the city was Abysmal King. However, Jian Wushuang did not sense any familiar aura within Gu King City. On the contrary, he sensed many foreign presences. These foreign experts sensed his daring use of his soul power and were alarmed. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Within seconds, 7 figures rose from the city and appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. The weakest among the 7 was a 7-star ancient god, while the strongest was an 8-star ancient god. Who are you? And why are you here? The muscular 8-star ancient god said as he gazed at Jian Wushuang. He saw the 8 stars between Jian Wushuang's brows, and treated him as an expert of the same power level. I am Gu Jian. I have just returned from the human territory. Jian Wushuang responded by giving the alias he had used when had first come to Ancient God Sanctuary. As far as I know, the masters of this city are the brothers King Gu Yu and King Gu Tong. Why are they not here? King Gu Yu? King Gu Tong? Are you part of the ancient clan since your surname is Gu? The 8-star ancient god and the 6 remaining 7-star ancient god faces turned cold. I am indeed part of the ancient clan. Jian Wushuang nodded his head and admitted. Ah, you have the courage to come here after ancient clan's betrayal. Shouldn't you be staying within Luo Wang City? The 8-star ancient god scoffed so loudly that his voice reverberated in the king's city. Betrayal? Jian Wushuang frowned. Everyone, he is a rebel from the ancient clan. Assist me in arresting him. If he resists, kill him. The 8-star ancient god bellowed. Immediately he led the rest and attacked Jian Wushuang. These 7 ancient gods used their fighting power when they attacked. They used a wide array of skills. Some revealed universal laws while some used the ancient god finger. The different ancient god secret skills and ancient god lost knowledge were executed perfectly. Upon seeing this, Jian Wushuang's face darkened. Get lost. His roar was accompanied by a mix of endless divine power and bloodline power that was far superior to most ancient gods. The ancient god bloodline power radiated out in waves within the city. The 7 ancient gods who attacked Jian Wushuang were stunned and stopped in their tracks. All of their attacks disintegrated. They gazed at Jian Wushuang in awe. They could sense how strong Jian Wushuang was from that simple roar. Additionally, they felt the aura from his bloodline power. That aura from his bloodline power made them feel like submitting and worshipping Jian Wushuang. This aura. It's the aura of an emperor? How can this be? How can someone from the ancient clan have the aura of an emperor? They are traitors. Who is he? Who is he? These ancient gods looked at Jian Wushuang in terror. The 8-star ancient god too stared in disbelief. Jian Wushuang looked at them coldly. He snorted and left after scanning the 7 ancient gods. He did not retaliate in return. The ancient gods heaved a sigh of relief after Jian Wushuang left the void above the city and went out of sight. When Jian Wushuang stood there, the aura made their cores tremble in fear, and forced them to worship him. That man. He said his name is Gu Jian and he returned from the human territory recently. His bloodline power felt purer than that of a royal ancient god. Is he the man that Luo Yu King and the rest support? The 8-star ancient god widened his eyes when he thought of this. He actually personally came to Ancient God Sanctuary. No. I must report this to Lord Chen Shi immediately. The 8-star ancient god whipped out a transmission token and sent the message. After leaving Gu King City, Jian Wushuang traveled for a while before stopping in midair. He looked back in the direction of Gu King City. He squinted his eyes slightly and thought to himself. That is indeed Gu King City, where I first cultivated the ancient god skills and ancient god lost knowledge. Back then, the city was under the control of the ancient god clan. Now, Gu Yu King and Gu Tong King are no longer in the city anymore. The people in the city even think of me as a traitor when I reveal my surname? My master, fighting power is what determines who gets to rule over the great king cities within the ancient god clan. It is normal for the masters of these cities to change every once in a while. However, even if a new ancient god defeats the previous master of the city, the previous master will just leave the city. He will not be seen as a traitor. Evidently, something big happened within the ancient god clan. King of Venomous Worms said to Jian Wushuang. Chapter 2068 Kill him on the spot. 2068 Kill him on the spot. That 8-star ancient god just mentioned that experts of the Gu clan should be hiding in Luoyang City. That city's controlled by King Luoyu if I'm not mistaken. Let me ask him. Jian Wushuang took out the transmission token King Luoyu had given him previously. King Luoyu, Jian Wushuang here, the message was sent. Oh Sword Emperor, you're here at the ancient god sanctuary? A reply soon followed. Yeah. I heard there's been a brawl within the ancient god clan. I immediately made my way here from the human domain visiting Gu King City too. But Gu King City's no longer under the Gu clan? What happened? How are the brothers King Guyu and Gu Tong? It's a long story, I better save it for when we meet. Regarding the brothers, they're within my city walls. Ping me your location and I'll get them to pick you up, King Luoyu replied. Sure. Jian Wushuang nodded and sent his location, waiting in the void near Gu King City as time passed. At the ancient god sanctuary within the vast void, lay a huge floating architectural complex. Within this complex, at its center, there was a palace one could not possibly not notice. Within that palace, a 3-meter-tall middle-aged man in chrome battle armor sat on the towering throne. This man was stone-faced, but the ferocious aura visible through his eyes was enough to startle one. But his most eye-catching feature was the 9 stars between his eyebrows. A 9-star ancient god was equivalent to a great emperor-level expert amongst the humans. But he was not King Luoyu, it was another within the ancient god clan, the much older King Chen Xing. King Chen Xing's expression had changed. He had received the notice from that 8-star ancient god within Guwang City. Gu Jian? A being just arrived from the human domain, but within lies a bloodline purer and better than the royal ancient god clan? Sword Emperor. King Chen Xing immediately lifted his head. Sword Emperor, whom Luoyu tried so hard to push to become the new ancient god emperor, has finally arrived at my ancient god sanctuary? So what if your bloodline is pure? The ancient god emperor of the clan will only be one, the rest can forget about it. Besides, this sword emperor is of human descent, and was not born within the ancient god clan. He is so much closer to humans than to us, what right does he have to become the ancient god emperor? In the ancient god clan, bloodline preceded everything else. That was the rule. Most people agreed with this rule, but to those elite experts, all rules could be bent as long as you had enough strength. Any rule could be bent with power. The fact that King Chen Xing did not recognize Jian Wushuang's bloodline was not only due to his human descent, but also because deep in his heart, he only acknowledged one ancient god emperor. Zhansong. King Chen Xing shouted. King Chen Xing, at the bottom of the palace came a stocky, tanned, gorilla-like man. The Sword Emperor has appeared just beside Guwang City. Bring someone over and invite him here, King Chen Xing instructed. Invite him? The gorilla-like man was stunned. Of course we'll invite him, but the way to invite? You should know how. If you can't do it, kill him on the spot. King Chen Xing's eyes were filled with ferocity. Aye, Zhansong nodded solemnly. Soon he took off with his finest men. The void outside Guwang City. Jian Wushuang waited quietly for a full fortnight. So, 2 figures appeared in front of Jian Wushuang's line of sight. They were the brothers King Guyu and Gu Tong. Haha Jian Wushuang. King Gu Tong had interacted with Jian Wushuang several times, and they were on good terms. A refreshing smile greeted Wushuang. Sword Emperor. King Guyu was obviously more reserved. Hope y'all are doing fine, Jian Wushuang smiled. They made some small talk. Gents, Guwang City, what happened? Jian Wushuang asked. What else we got attacked? King Gu Tong shrugged. The people in control of the city now, they were enough against the both of you too? Jian Wushuang frowned. He knew clearly, King Guyu had long ago attained the 8-star ancient god expert level, equivalent to a peak universe god in the human domain. King Gu Tong had also made it to the 8-star level these past couple of years. He was not as strong as the Abysmal King, but certainly not too far behind. Along with so many 7-star ancient gods within the Gu clan, their power was astonishing. Those experts in Guwang City could not have possibly taken down the city by themselves. Those people? Of course they couldn't do it alone. They had help, we brothers weren't enough to handle them, King Gu Tong said. So I see, Jian Wushuang replied. They'll tell you the details back at Luoyang City, Sword Emperor. King Luoyu is waiting for you, the Abysmal King replied. Let's go then. Mind if y'all lead the way? Jian Wushuang smiled. Under the brothers' lead, they headed towards Luoyang City. Along the way the trio started to chit-chat. Wushuang, the last time I saw you was back at your hometown Greenfire World. When you still hadn't made your breakthrough, You were already considered the top peak universe god amongst human cultivators. Now that the breakthrough has been made, you are certainly much stronger, right? King Gutong looked over. Slightly, I guess, Jian Wushuang replied humbly. Could you fight a 9-star ancient god? King Gutong continued his questions. Should be able to, Wushuang smiled. Really? King Gutong had his reservations. Jian Wushuang smiled but did not explain much. Suddenly Jian Wushuang halted. What's wrong? King Guyu and Gutong paused as well, looking towards Jian Wushuang. Someone is here. They're strong and they don't lack in numbers, Jian Wushuang said. King Guyu and Gutong's faces turned dark. Soon after, several figures could be seen in their line of sight. 10 people had formed a row, each with such powerful auras. The weakest among them was a top 7-star ancient god. 4 8-star ancient gods were amongst the men, but the most eye-catching was the stocky, tanned, gorilla-like man. The stars between that man's eyebrows. He had 9. Chapter 2069 Invitation. Invitation. That is King Zhan Tsang, leader of the Zhan clan. Blood drained from King Guyu and King Gutong's face. Gutong King wanted to slap himself hard. He had just asked whether Jian Wushuang could go head-to-head with a 9-star ancient god, and one had appeared. Zhan clan? Jian Wushuang thought as he frowned. He asked, within the ancient god clan, isn't there only King Luo Yu and King Qin Xing who are 9-star ancient gods? There was indeed only 2 9-star ancient gods. However, not too long ago, a new ancient battlefield appeared near your hometown. Many of the ancient gods went there to search for opportunities. They managed to gain some rewards. King Zhan Tsang reaped the greatest benefits. He managed to use the opportunities within the ancient battlefield and became a 9-star ancient god, King Guyu said. Is that so? Jian Wushuang nodded his head. King Zhan Tsang and the Zhan clan were always obeying King Qin Xing and listening to his orders. The ancient god clan sides with King Luo Yu while we support you. On the other hand, King Qin Xing opposes this idea firmly. King Zhan Tsang probably got news that Sword Emperor came to ancient god sanctuary and came especially for you. His intentions are bad. He has bad intentions? Jian Wushuang smiled lightly. What could a 9-star ancient god that was just promoted due to opportunity do even if his intentions were bad? Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 10 ancient god experts, together with their leader King Zhan Tsang, appeared in front of the trio. King Zhan Tsang, who was the size of a gorilla, first scanned King Guyu and King Gutong before looking at Jian Wushuang. Are you the Sword Emperor? King Zhan Tsang asked coldly. Yes, I am. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. I am Zhan Tsang. If you want to inherit the place of the ancient god emperor, follow me so that we can discuss this matter. King Zhan Tsang said. King Guyu and King Gutong panicked. King Zhan Tsang. If King Qin Xing really wanted King Zhan Tsang to inherit the throne of the ancient god emperor, he wouldn't be fighting so fiercely against King Luo Yu, nor would he send you here to invite Sword Emperor. He would have come personally. King Gutong shouted. Keep quiet. King Zhan Tsang scolded as he glanced at King Gutong. You are just a mere 8-star ancient emperor. You have no place to speak. King Gutong was stunned. He had no choice but to tolerate it even though he was upset. An 8-star ancient god should always respect a 9-star ancient god. Sword Emperor, follow me, King Zhan Tsang said once again. What if I refuse? Jian Wushuang smiled. Refuse? Do you think you have the right to refuse when I invite you personally? Be logical or I will take action, King Zhan Tsang threatened. Take action? I really want to know what you will do. Jian Wushuang grinned as he took a step. Even though his step looked casual, it closed the distance between him and King Zhan Tsang instantly as he appeared in front of King Zhan Tsang. A wave of strong diving power and bloodline power which was many times purer than that of a royal ancient god swept out in all directions at that instant. Jian Wushuang raised his right hand and pointed his index finger towards King Zhan Tsang. Once the finger was extended, heaven and earth turned silent. Boom. Emerging in the void behind Jian Wushuang was a black, shiny mirage of an ancient god that was tens of thousands of feet tall. This gargantuan mirage also pointed out its finger. This finger was the ancient god's 9th finger. This was the last move under the ancient god's finger. The name? Ultimate Finger. You are asking for it. King Zhan Tsang was enraged when Jian Wushuang attacked him without saying a word. His ancient god body, which was as large as an orangutan, expanded in size rapidly. Endless waves of ancient god power gushed out furiously. A humongous mirage of an ancient god appeared behind him. It also attacked with the same technique. ancient god's ninth finger. The only difference was that his ancient god mirage was dark gold, which was a telltale sign that he was a member of royalty. On the other hand, Jian Wushuang's mirage was dark green. Bang! The two fingers collided head-on. Two waves of shocking power erupted and burst forth in all directions. King Zhang was confident in his own power. He was a 9-star ancient god, one of only 3 within the ancient god clan. However, Jian Wushuang was just an 8-star ancient god. The difference in power level was still evident even if Jian Wushuang had bloodline power, which was purer, that could suppress his fighting power. Since the move was the same, he was absolutely confident in destroying Jian Wushuang's ultimate finger. However, his confidence shook the moment the two fingers collided. The air howled as the endless ancient god power dispersed in all directions. His dark gold ultimate finger fell apart and exploded. It couldn't even put up a fight to stop Jian Wushuang's ultimate finger. The moment it collided, it disappeared. Even though the difference in power level was evident, the ending was unexpected. How is this possible? King Zhang widened his eyes. Jian Wushuang's ultimate finger came upon him. He had no time to react as he was still stunned. Boom! The enormous ultimate finger smashed into King Zhang. It shoved King Zhang towards the ground ruthlessly and effortlessly. It was as though he was a mere fly. Crash! The entire earth shook. A crater so deep that on one could see what was at the bottom formed. King Zhang was completely buried at the bottom of the crater. There was no movement even after a while, so no one knew what his condition was. After doing all of this, Jian Wushuang patted his own sleeves as the huge mirage of the ancient god disintegrated into nothingness. However, the aura of his bloodline, which was purer than that of a royal ancient emperor, still swept out in all directions. He looked down on the crater that King Zhang was in and smiled in disdain. He was simply a 9-star ancient god who got promoted recently. How dare he tell me that he will take action if I refuse his offer? What an idiot. A 9-star ancient emperor was just equivalent to a normal great emperor back in the human territory. A 9-star ancient emperor who had just been promoted was equivalent to the most normal stage 1 great emperor. He could fight 13 of such great emperors alone back when he was in 3 Emperors' World. Chapter 2070 within Luo King City? So what about you guys? Are the rest of you going to invite me as well? Jian Wushuang said coldly as he scanned the remaining 10 ancient gods. The remaining 10 ancient gods who had 7 or 8 stars looked at Jian Wushuang in awe and disbelief. They lowered their heads upon hearing his question. Even someone with the power level of King Zhang could be defeated easily by Jian Wushuang. They would not risk their lives and anger Jian Wushuang. Since no one is going to invite me, get lost, Jian Wushuang raged. The ancient gods stepped aside immediately and made a path. King Guyu and King Gu Tong, let us continue our journey, Jian Wushuang looked at the two of them and said. At that point in time, King Guyu and King Gu Tong were shocked beyond words. King Gu Tong doubted that Jian Wushuang could fend off a 9-star ancient god even when Jian Wushuang himself said that he could. But now, Jian Wushuang had crushed a 9-star ancient emperor with a single technique. Even King Luo Yu could not have achieved this feat. Besides feeling surprised, they were euphoric. This was their true emperor. He had both insane power and strong bloodline power. Let's go. The 3 of them made their way towards Luo King City. Within the large ditch, King Zhang stood up after a while. By then, Jian Wushuang and the other 2 men were already far away. After half a month, Jian Wushuang reached Luo King City under the guidance of the 2 kings. Sword Emperor, this is Luo King City. The experts form Luo clan, Gu clan and many other clans are gathered here. However, Luo King City is barricaded by the men under King Xing. My brother and I put in a lot of effort just to get out to welcome you, King Guyu said. Barricaded? Looks like you are at a complete disadvantage in this fight. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and said. King Guyu sighed and continued, I have messaged King Luo Yu and asked for his aid to bring us into the city. We should send a message to King Luo Yu to inform him that we are arriving. However, we do not need his aid. We will make our way in by ourselves, Jian Wushuang said as he rushed towards the city. Entering by force? King Guyu was stunned for a moment. Then he recalled the fighting power of Jian Wushuang and understood how. Before long, violent roars and clashes could be heard. The trio had fought the experts under the command of King Xing. However, under the ruthless attacks, the experts lost to Jian Wushuang. The trio broke past the barricade easily and appeared in front of the city. King Luo Yu, numerous 7-star ancient gods and 8-star ancient gods stood there waiting for the arrival of Jian Wushuang. Sword Emperor, King Luo Yu greeted respectfully. He walked up as soon as he saw Jian Wushuang in the distance. King Luoyu, how have you been? Jian Wushuang smiled. The remaining ancient gods that were standing behind King Luoyu looked at Jian Wushuang curiously. They knew his identity as King Luoyu had told them earlier that Jian Wushuang possessed bloodline of emperors and that they should support him in becoming their new master. Aside from King Gu Tong, King Gu Yu and a few others, no one had met Jian Wushuang before, much less confirmed the bloodline power others claimed he had. They were unsure if the claims were true. Jian Wushuang smiled lightly when he saw that everyone doubted him. The aura of the bloodline power of the ancient clan burst forth. This aura? All the ancient gods were startled. The aura of an emperor. This is definitely the bloodline power of an emperor. Ah, this certainly is the bloodline power of an emperor. Looks like King Luoyu was right, there is indeed someone with the bloodline of emperors. How dare this King Chen Xing vow that we are traitors? I want to see what he has to say after the message that the bloodline of emperor exists spreads. All the ancient gods looked at Jian Wushuang in excitement. King Luoyu smiled when he saw the changes in expressions. He said, Sword Emperor, please enter the city. We can continue the conversation inside. Okay, Jian Wushuang nodded his head and said. Under the personal guidance of King Luoyu, Jian Wushuang entered Luo King City. There were many 7 and 8 stars ancient gods seated within the large, magnificent palace. At the top of the palace there were 2 thrones side by side. Jian Wushuang sat on one beside King Luoyu. King Luoyu, what's happened? Jian Wushuang asked. After I confirmed that you, Sword Emperor, have the bloodline of emperors back in Greenfire World, I came back to Ancient God Sanctuary immediately. I gathered the different clan leaders and the masters of various king cities to come together to support you as our new emperor. King Luoyu started explaining. In the history of our clan, bloodline power is supreme. Since you possess the bloodline power of emperors, you should become our new emperor. However, during the gathering, King Chen Xing questioned this. He said that your blood is mixed with that of a human, so you do not deserve to be our new emperor. He further accused that my Tua clan conspired with the humans and are traitors to the ancient god clan. Hence, during the meeting, I fell out with King Chen Xing. Out of all the different clan leaders and masters of king cities, only 30% of them sided with me. However, 40% sided with King Chen Xing. 40%? I thought that bloodline power is supreme within the ancient god clan? Why do 40% of the experts support King Chen Xing? And what happened to the other 30%? Jian Wushuang knitted his eyebrows and asked. It is indeed true that bloodline power is supreme in our clan. However, some people felt it unfair that you possessed the bloodline power of emperor, while others had not seen you with their own eyes. Most importantly, the influence of King Chen Xing is too strong in the ancient god clan. King Luoyu sighed. King Chen Xing is the oldest and most senior within the clan. He is also the strongest person. There was no one born with the bloodline of emperors till this date. Hence he is always the leader in our clan. He plays an important role in deciding the masters of different king cities in the fight against the other 3 top-tier clans as well as resolving clashes with other special tribes. Furthermore, he is the direct royal bloodline of first ancient god emperor. Direct royal bloodline? Jian Wushuang was stunned before he continued, You mean, yes, his father is ancient god emperor. King Luoyi said seriously. Chapter 2071 Alone. No wonder. Jian Wushuang commented. As the heir to ancient god emperor, King Chen Xing had superior bloodline power compared to the rest. He was the most recognized leader of the ancient god clan and the strongest person within the clan. His influence was evident within the clan. No wonder 40% of the experts supported him. Wait. Ancient god emperor was an expert in the first era. He should have died when the first era ended. Wouldn't that mean that King Chen Xing also came from the first era if he was the son? Jian Wushuang said startled. Yes. Ancient God Emperor had 3 sons in the first era and King Chen Xing was the youngest. During the first era he was not powerful and was not a 9-star ancient god. He was just an 8-star ancient god. After the first era ended, Ancient God Emperor and his elder 2 sons died. He survived with a minimal number of ancient gods. They started to reproduce and eventually formed the ancient god clan today. In fact, all of the 3 most powerful tribes are living legacies from the first era, King Luoyu said. Jian Wushuang's heart skipped a beat. No wonder. It seems like King Chen Xing made great contributions to the ancient god clan. Jian Wushuang smiled. King Chen Xing managed to lead a tribe which had barely survived the first era to become a dominating force in the second era. His ability and power deserved respect from the general population of ancient gods. King Chen Xing made great contributions to the ancient god clan. However, he will admit to only his father having a purer bloodline power. It is to no surprise that he acted with hostility towards me when he learnt that I support you in becoming the new ancient god emperor, King Luoyu said. I am no match for King Chen Xing as he is a powerful man. Furthermore, he gained the support of one of the 9-star ancient gods from the Zhan clan. All I could do was stay within Luo Wang City to think of ideas. Jianwu Shuang nodded his head to show that he understood. King Chen Xing sealed off Luo King City during this time period. It is extremely difficult for us to leave the city, let alone for us to force King Chen Xing to back off. We were no match for him. Now that you are here, it should be much easier to solve the existing problems, King Luoyu said with a serious face. How so? Jianwu Shuang looked at King Luoyu with interest. The ancient clan puts bloodline power above all else. No matter how big the contributions of King Chen Xing and no matter how widespread his influence is, it will not change this fact. The reason why 40% of the clan supports him is because they have yet to see you. Hence, they are not sure whether you possess the bloodline of emperors. Since you have arrived at Ancient God Sanctuary, those remaining 30% who have yet to make up their minds will definitely support you. King Luoyu said. The masters of the king cities and various clans may be willing to support me. However, King Chen Xing probably will not even if he verifies that I have the bloodline of emperors, Jianwu Shuang said. This? King Luoyu frowned and said. King Jianchen will only submit to his father. It is not possible for him to serve you willingly. However, there is no way he could influence the will of the masses in the ancient god clan. Even though that may be the case, it will be much better if King Xing Chen decides to serve me willingly, Jianwu Shuang smiled. By the way, what is the power level of King Xing Chen? King Xing Chen is unanimously thought of as the strongest in the ancient god clan. His power level is at the limit of a 9-star ancient god and he is the second strongest in the special tribe. His fighting power should be similar to that of a normal stage 2 great emperor. Jianwu Shuang was surprised. A normal stage 2 emperor? Jianwu Shuang possessed one of the highest fighting powers out of all the stage 2 great emperor. If this was the case, he should be more powerful than King Chen Xing given that the emperor bloodline power would further suppress the fighting power of King Chen Xing. Lead the way, King Luoyu. I want to meet King Chen Xing, Jianwu Shuang said as he stood up. King Luoyu's face turned pale. There is a great difference in power between our faction and his faction. To go and find King Chen Xing now would be suicide. I think we should send a message to the other 3% of the clan and to the masters of the different cities. We will gather together before finding King Chen Xing. This is a much safer way. Let us save the trouble. We shall head there now. Jianwu Shuang smiled. King Luoyu frowned and stopped trying to discourage the Sword Emperor. Under the guidance of King Luoyu, Jianwu Shuang left Luo Wang City and reached a vast void. There were large groups of buildings floating within this void. There were many faint but overbearing auras radiating out from the buildings. King Chen Xing is within those buildings, Sword Emperor. I shall call him to come and meet us, King Luoyu said. There is no need. Jianwu Shuang waved him off. Wait for me here. I will find him personally. You are going alone? No way. King Luoyu was shocked. Calm down and watch what happens. Jianwu Shuang smiled as he moved towards the buildings. King Luoyu turned pale and the remaining ancient gods present were puzzled. They felt that the Sword Emperor was too arrogant. It was obvious that King Chen Xing was not on good terms with the Sword Emperor. They felt like the Sword Emperor was asking for it when he entered the home of King Chen Xing alone. He clearly knew that he might be killed. King Guyu and King Gu Tong were the only two people that remained calm. King Luoyu, there is something I have yet to report. King Guyu said. What is it? King Luoyu sounded agitated as he was clearly worried for the safety of Jianwu Shuang. When King Gu Tong, Sword Emperor and I were on our way back to Luo Wang City we met Zhan Song. King Guyu said. Zhan Song? King Luoyu face tightened. 9-star royal ancient god Zhan Song. He must have been listening to King Chen Xing's orders and went after Sword Emperor. How did all of you escape? Escape? There was no need to run. Sword Emperor fought Zhan Song and beat him with just one move, King Guyu said as he shook his head. Chapter 2072 King Chen Xing. He only needed one move to defeat Zhan Song? King Luoyu widened his eyes. The surrounding ancient gods looked over at King Guyu in disbelief. Zhan Song was a legit 9-star ancient god. Even King Luoyu could not defeat him in one move. Even though Sword Emperor is an 8-star ancient god, his true power is much greater than that of most 9-star ancient gods. There is a reason why he decided to meet King Chen Xing alone. Everyone don't worry for his safety, King Guyu said. So this is why Jian Wushuang dared to go alone. King Luoyu heaved a sigh of relief. However, King Qinsheng is already a stage 2 ancient god. He is not easy to deal with. If anything unexpected happens, we will help him immediately. Yes, the ancient gods around nodded their heads. Jian Wushuang appeared at the foot of a estate. Who is that? A stern voice shouted. Jian Wushuang did not halt. He smiled and continued walking. Right when he was about to enter the estate, an aura of bloodline power many times purer than that of a royal ancient god burst forth from Jian Wushuang. It felt like a dragon was awakening as the aura filled the entire atmosphere. Many of the ancient gods, including those from the various clans and the different masters of the various cities, felt pressured to submit and bow down to their new emperor. All of them were caught by surprise. That is the aura of an emperor. What King Luoyu said was true. Someone with the bloodline of emperors was born. A new emperor. Everyone within the estate were boiling with curiosity as many ancient gods flew out. The entire place was densely packed within moments. Everyone was looking at the young man who was walking towards the center of the estate. Jian Wushuang placed his hands behind his back as he looked around and said with dignity, "Who dares to stop me?" This simple sentence forced many ancient gods to lower their heads. Those who tried to stop Jian Wushuang stepped aside without hesitation. Within the ancient god clan, bloodline is supreme. This concept was definitely true in this clan. They had only heard from King Luoyu that there had been a human born with the bloodline of emperor and they should support him in becoming the new emperor. They chose to support King Qinsheng because the new emperor was human. Furthermore, they could not confirm the claim as they had not met Jian Wushuang before. Once these ancient gods felt the aura of bloodline of emperors themselves, their doubts disappeared. Everyone looked at Jian Wushuang in an excited and passionate manner. The one who possessed the bloodline of emperors was their emperor. Even though the blood of a human flowed through his veins, this couldn't change the fact that he too possessed the bloodline of emperors. Every ancient god moved out of the way and no one dared to stop Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang walked successfully to the center of the estate and stopped in front of the most majestic palace. Within the palace, a 3-meter-tall man in silver body armor stood up slowly. Behind the silver armor man was another man whose body was as big as a gorilla's. This man was King Zhansong. He had been defeated in a battle against Jian Wushuang. "Are you King Qinsheng?" Jian Wushuang stared at the man in silver body armor and asked coldly. "Sword Emperor, you are a courageous man. You dare to venture here alone. Do you really think that your bloodline power will save you?" King Qinsheng said as he stared back coldly. Before Jian Wushuang could reply, an 8-star ancient god, who also happened to be a master of a king city, spoke. "King Qinsheng, according to the law of the ancient clan, we should support Jian Wushuang in becoming the new emperor as he possesses the bloodline of emperors. I hope you can," before the 8-star ancient god finished his sentence. "Keep quiet." King Qinsheng bellowed fiercely and stared at the 8-star ancient god as the ancient god was forced into silence. "Within the ancient god clan, there will only be one emperor, and that will be my father. He is of paramount importance within the clan. On the other hand, so what if Jian Wushuang possessed the bloodline power of emperor? At the end of the day he is still a human. Who gave him the right to be the emperor of the ancient god clan?" King Qinsheng questioned coldly as his voice reverberated through the air. The ancient gods around kept quiet after hearing this. "King Qinsheng, I'm going to ask you one last time. Are you going to submit?" Jian Wushuang said coldly. "Submit? Me? Submitting to a mere human like you?" King Qinsheng started laughing as though he had just heard the funniest joke in the world. "Are you not going to? If that's the case, then do not blame me for what's going to happen." Jian Wushuang focused his vision on King Qinsheng and leaped forth. Boom. The void beneath Jian Wushuang's feet exploded into pieces. Surging waves of divine power and bloodline power radiated from Jian Wushuang. At that moment, Jian Wushuang pointed his finger. Heaven and earth trembled as a mirage of an ancient god tens of thousands feet tall appeared behind Jian Wushuang, copying his stance. At the tip of its finger, a ball of diving power started to concentrate, glowing dark green. "It's this move again." King Zhansong, who was standing behind King Qinsheng, widened his eyes and hints of fear could be seen in them. King Zhansong had been defeated easily using this move back when he had invited Jian Wushuang using force. Now Jian Wushuang had used the same move and attacked King Qinsheng. Humph. King Qinsheng grunted as he started to boil with divine power. His aura grew to a peak instantly. He was different from King Zhansong. King Zhansong had only reached the level of a 9-star ancient god recently. However, King Qinsheng had been at the peak of a 9-star ancient god for a very long time. His fighting power was that of a stage 2 great emperor back in the First Era. He was much stronger than King Zhansong. Jian Wushuang, you are asking for it, King Qinsheng said coldly. Upon finishing his sentence, he too channeled his divine power and attacked. He too used the ancient god's 9th finger, the ultimate finger. The power was at least 10 times stronger than when King Zhansong had performed the same move. The two fingers collided head-on. Heaven and earth rumbled fiercely. The void shattered as the limitless amount of divine power gushed violently in all directions. In the end, both fingers disintegrated into nothingness after the intense collision. Chapter 2073. Get down. King Qinsheng looked at Jian Wushuang coldly within the violent storm of divine power. Jian Wushuang stood up straight as numerous mirages of ancient gods appeared behind him. Ancient god, lost knowledge, universal laws. Boom, 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 boom. Every single mirage used its palm and slapped forward fiercely. Each slap seemed to contain a complete cycle of reincarnation. King Qinsheng's face turned dark. His ancient god power burst forth as numerous mirages appeared behind him. It had been a battle between the strength of Ultimate Finger during the fight against Zhansong before. Now, it was a battle between the universal law. The entire heaven and earth was overwhelmed by the endless divine power. All that one could hear was the countless number of tightly packed collisions as the sounds reverberated through the air. Amidst the raging collisions, humph! A snort could be heard as the numerous ancient god mirages belonging to King Qinsheng dissipated into the air. He swiftly took a few steps back in retreat. How could this brat's divine power be so pure? King Qinsheng thought. Even though he was startled, his face did not show any sign of fear. Secret skill. Guided thunder. Heaven and earth shook suddenly, as a rift in heaven and earth appeared out of nowhere in the sky above. At the ends of this gigantic rift, beams of crimson red light appeared. These beams of light were countless bolts of sacred thunder of extermination packed densely together. Any single bolt of thunder could easily kill an almighty, and there were at least hundreds of thousands of bolts there. These hundreds of thousands of bolts of thunder fused together perfectly, forming a single huge crimson thunder bolt. This bolt of thunder suddenly descended. Secret skill, guided thunder? Jian Wushuang saw this and smiled. I also know this move. A similar gigantic rift in heaven and earth appeared on the other side of the sky. However, from this rift, the countless sacred thunders of extermination were dark jade in color. The power of the thunder was unbelievably strong. Under the control of Jian Wushuang, the thunder fused together to form a huge thunder dragon which was dark jade in color. The thunder dragon roared as it rushed towards the crimson red thunderbolt. The two collided in midair. Kaboom! It was as though it was a bolt from the blue. However, the sound and power was far greater than that of a normal bolt. The two sacred thunder of extermination collided with devastating impact. The surrounding void dissipated completely and formed a spacetime storm. Originally, there had been a complex of buildings beneath their feet. After the collision, all the buildings had been destroyed and ceased to exist. The terrifying aura shocked the ancient gods who had escaped. I have used almost all the attacks and secret skills from the ancient god lost knowledge. Next up is... Jian Wushuang thought as he looked at King Qinsheng coldly. At the same time, the size of his body grew rapidly. Heads and arms started to grow out of his body. This occurred to King Qinsheng as well. Both had 9 heads and 18 arms. Kill. Fight. Following the war cry, both their fists collided fiercely into each other. This time both of them fought with their bare fists. Each of the 18 arms Jian Wushuang had grown held a sword. He used his swordsmanship to the fullest. King Qinsheng used the brute force of his fist. Each punch was like a meteorite crashing. The power was unbelievable. Fighting at melee range had always been a specialty of ancient god clan. Their fighting power at close range was far superior to that of the people in other clans. During the battle, Jian Wushuang and King Qinsheng both maximized their ability to fight at close range. The ancient gods who were around watching this fight were stunned. Many cleared their throats as they shuddered in fear from the bottom of their soul. These two men were without a doubt the strongest within the ancient god clan. On one side was King Qinsheng, the man who was unanimously thought to be the strongest within the clan. On the other side was Jian Wushuang. He possessed the bloodline of emperors. Even though he was just an 8-star ancient god, his power level was still higher than that of King Qinsheng. Yes, he was stronger than King Qinsheng. Everyone witnessed it themselves. Jian Wushuang was stronger in every way, be it the power of his secret skill and lost knowledge, or his ability to fight at close range. Jian Wushuang managed to completely suppress King Chen Xing even now. Even though King Chen Xing did everything he could and was fighting back with all his might, it was still clear that he was at a disadvantage. How is this possible? This brat is just an 8-star ancient god. How can he be stronger than me? King Chen Xing thought to himself, shocked. His face was gloomy. King Chen Xing was a 9-star ancient god. Even though their ability to fight at close range was of the same level, Jian Wushuang could still suppress him head-on. This was because the power that came from Jian Wushuang's sword was stronger due to the superior divine power and the inhibition from the bloodline power. On the point of quality of divine power, Jian Wushuang was at the second phase of the 7th step of inverse cultivation. He had also finished cultivating phase 1 of his immemorial celestial body. Furthermore, he possessed the bloodline of emperors. Even though King Chen Xing was the heir to the first ancient god emperor, he was simply a royal ancient god. He would be weakened due to his inferior bloodline power. Hence, Jian Wushuang was definitely stronger than King Chen Xing. King Chen Xing was no match for Jian Wushuang due to the reasons above, and was oppressed in battle. King Chen Xing. An angry bellow was heard. King Chen Xing looked up immediately. He saw that 4 of Jian Wushuang's arms were gripping a single sword. A wave of shocking sword essence rose and skyrocketed. Sword Principal Xianlu, Blast Rainstorm. Get down? Jian Wushuang roared as his blade, with the speed of a gale and the power of a hurricane, swept out. The emphasis of this move was on the power. King Chen Xing's eyes turned bloodshot. He channeled his divine power as his fist punched out with a force equivalent to a real meteorite. Bang! An earth-shaking sound was heard as waves of divine power flooded the entire heaven and earth. The result, King Chen Xing fell towards the ground, trembling. A large ditch was formed. On the other hand, Jian Wushuang stood upright and unharmed. He looked down into the ditch. King Chen Xing, do you submit to me? Chapter 2074. Outrageously unreasonable. King Chen Xing, do you submit? The voice of Jian Wushuang was so loud that it could be heard above Cloud 9. It was as though his voice represented the will of Heaven Wei as it reverberated through heaven and earth. Upon witnessing this sight, the surrounding ancient gods respected Jian Wushuang even more. Within the ditch, King Chen Xing stood and looked up. 2 thin rays of light burst forth. Jokes? King Chen Xing bellowed and tried to move. Jian Wushuang stood tall in the void. 4 of his hands gripped his blood mountain sword tightly. He used Blast Rainstorm from Sword Principal Shen Luo again. Get down? Jian Wushuang bellowed. King Chen Xing, who was trying to fly out of the ditch, was once again flooded by sword lights. He dropped back into the ditch again. Do you submit? Jian Wushuang yelled once again. Bastard! King Chen Xing cursed. Jian Wushuang swung his sword once again. Boom! The entire earth shook. Do you submit? Jian Wushuang yelled again. You wish. King Chen Xing replied. Boom! Another wave of sword light came. Do you submit? You. Boom! Do you submit? Never. Boom! Do you submit? The ancient gods watching this battle were dumbfounded. Their eyes widened as they saw the scene. They saw that Jian Wushuang kept on swinging his sword and kept on asking if King Chen Xing would submit. When King Chen Xing refused to submit, he would be met with another wave of sword light from Jian Wushuang. King Chen Xing was obviously a punching bag and had no chance to fight back. This method Jian Wushuang was using to get King Chen Xing to submit shocked the remaining ancient gods present. It was domineering and unreasonable. Yes. Jian Wushuang was like a gangster, utterly unreasonable and domineering. He did not waste any time with King Chen Xing by trying to persuade him to submit. He simply asked a simple question. Do you submit? If the reply was no, he would attack. Jian Wushuang would attack until King Chen Xing decided to submit even though he was already buried in the ground. King Chen Xing was one of the most powerful 9-star ancient gods. His fighting power had reached stage 2 but he still was no match for Jian Wushuang. Boom! 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 Jian Wushuang used the fuller to perform his sword skills. Each impact made a loud sound that could be heard clearly. Clearly, he was using power to suppress King Chen Xing. King Chen Xing had no chance to recover himself as the endless waves of sword skills collided with his back. In the blink of an eye, Jian Wushuang attacked numerous times. Each time he attacked he asked King Chen Xing to submit. Initially, King Chen Xing would struggle madly and had wanted to fight back. After a while he stopped. Boom! Another collision occurred and King Chen Xing was completely buried underground. Do you submit? Jian Wushuang bellowed once more. At the bottom of the crater, King Chen Xing kept quiet. He thought for a while before he growled, "I will only submit if you can be recognized by my father." Oh. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrow as he stopped his sword in midair. King Chen Xing could finally catch his breath before he rose from the crater. King Chen Xing was in a bad state. His hair was messy, there were blood stains on his lips, and his silver armor had several gashes left by a sword. He stood there with anger in his eyes. However, there was fear too. Yes, fear. During the brief battle, he had become fearful of Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang had given him a mental scar from his unreasonable actions and his terrifying fighting power. Since his birth in the First Era till now, he had never met a person so unreasonable. To make matters worse, this person was stronger than him. "King Chen Xing, you just said that if I could be recognized by your father, you would submit to me. Your father is the first ancient god emperor, how can I get his recognition?" Jian Wushuang asked. King Chen Xing took a deep breath before he spoke. "My father was one of the strongest men alive back in the First Era. Even though my father died when the First Era ended, he left behind a conscience within an old grave. This grave is located within the ancient god sanctuary. All you need to do is to enter the ancient emperor grave and gain the recognition of my father's conscience. If you can do so, I will support you in becoming our new emperor. I will listen to your orders without fail. However, if you cannot, I will never listen to you even if everyone else does." Ancient emperor grave? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. "Master, within the ancient god sanctuary, there is an ancient emperor grave. According to legend, the ancient god emperor did leave a consciousness within." King Chen Xing is not lying, the king of venomous worms whispered to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang nodded his head lightly before looking at King Luoyu. "King Luoyu." The voice reverberated in the air. Beside the pile of ruins of what used to be the estate, King Luoyu and the other ancient gods were waiting patiently. They saw what had just happened with their own eyes. At that point in time, King Luoyu, King Guyu, King Gutong and the remaining ancient gods were dumbfounded. They came back to their senses after Jian Wushuang shouted for King Luoyu. They started walking towards Jian Wushuang. Those who supported King Chen Xing did not stop them. Sword Emperor King Luoyu walked beside Jian Wushuang and saluted him. It was obvious that he respected the Sword Emperor even more than he had before. This was normal, as the only reason he supported Jian Wushuang in being the new emperor was because he had the bloodline of emperors. He had not considered the fighting power of the Sword Emperor. Now, King Chen Xing, who was a 9-star ancient god and had the fighting power of a stage 2 great emperor, had been crushed in a battle against the Sword Emperor. This fighting power alone surprised him, as he was fully convinced that the Sword Emperor had the ability to be the new emperor. Everyone else who had just watched the battle was convinced too. Even though bloodline power was supreme in the ancient god clan, they would still respect the people who were powerful. Jian Wushuang not only had the bloodline of emperors, he also had the strongest fighting power in the clan. To get the right to become the new emperor of the ancient god clan, one had to possess both qualities. Chapter 2075. Ancient Emperor S. Grave. King Luoyu, do you know of this grave? Jian Wushuang asked. Yes, King Luoyu said as he nodded his head. It was left behind by ancient god emperor. The conscience of ancient god emperor resides within the grave. It is our sanctuary. However, this grave opens once every 1,000,000 years. The last time the grave opened was around 300,000 years ago. If you want to enter, you will have to wait another 700,000 years. 700,000 years? Jian Wushuang looked at King Xingchen coldly as his face turned black. Are you trying to make a fool out of me? I have no intentions of making a fool out of you. It is true that it takes another 700,000 years for the ancient emperor's grave to open by itself. However, this grave is controlled by my father's conscience. If you are worthy, my father will open the grave and allow you to enter immediately. King Chen Xing grunted. Jian Wushuang hesitated before nodding his head. Okay. I will try to enter the ancient emperor's grave. Sword Emperor. King Chen Xing is trying to make your life difficult. You can afford to ignore him, as 99% of the ancient gods will support you in becoming the next ancient god emperor due to your superior bloodline power, King Luoyu said anxiously. No worries, Jian Wushuang said as he waved King Luoyu off. He already knew what he had to do. Jian Wushuang did not think of killing or exiling King Chen Xing. King Chen Xing was a stage 2 great emperor and would prove to be crucial in the final battle against 3 Emperor World. Furthermore, he could not help but respect the ability of King Chen Xing, as he had single-handedly molded the ancient god clan into one of the strongest clans in the era. If he could get King Chen Xing to listen to him wholeheartedly, He could rest assured and leave the Ancient God clan to King Xing when he left Ancient God Sanctuary. He would fight for this possibility. Another important reason was the Ancient Emperor's grave. The first Ancient God Emperor was one of the strongest men back in the First Era. His power and ability was much stronger than that of any great emperors. Jian Wushuang was extremely interested in the things these kind of super experts would leave behind. Now he had received the news that such a grave exists. Even if King Xing did not raise entering the grave as one of his conditions, Jian Wushuang would still venture into the grave. King Xing, take me to the ancient emperor's grave, Jian Wushuang said. Yes, King Xing said as he led the way without hesitation. Jian Wushuang, King Luoyu and the other top-tier ancient god followed suit. Ancient Emperor's grave was located in the middle of the ancient god sanctuary. It was the holiest place in the hearts of most ancient gods. This place would be flooded with people every million years when it would open its doors. On a normal day like this, no one would be around. However, every ancient god who was at least 7 stars had gathered here. The leaders of them were the 3 9-star ancient gods, King Xing, King Luoyu and King Zhansong. These 3 leaders stood cautiously beside a young man. Is this the ancient emperor's grave? Jian Wushuang said with his hands behind his back. He was looking at a cave within a formation. The cave was gigantic and the formation was extremely powerful. This is the entrance. Every time the grave opens, people of this clan will enter that way. Even if the grave is not open today, that is the only way you can take to enter forcibly, King Xing said as he pointed towards a certain part of the formation. Jian Wushuang nodded lightly. Sword Emperor, this grave was left behind by the first ancient god emperor using unimaginable means. Even after so long, no one had ever managed to enter forcibly. All those who tried, including King Xing, were at least 8-star ancient gods. All those who tried failed and died inside except for King Xing. Please reconsider carefully, King Luoyu said as his eyebrows were knitted closely together. After hearing all this, are you afraid? If you are, leave this place immediately. You can get all the support from the other ancient gods. Just don't come looking for me, King Xing said coldly. Afraid? Since you, King Xing, can walk out of the grave alive, why should I be afraid? I hope you remember your promise, Jian Wushuang smiled indifferently. Jian Wushuang took off towards the ancient emperor's grave slowly, ignoring the people who stood behind him. Even though he walked slowly, it only took him a few steps to reach the entrance of the grave. The first thing he saw at the entrance was a large flight of stairs. There were hundreds of steps and each radiated a special aura. King Xing, King Luoyu and the other ancient gods stood far away and observed quietly. Lord Xing, do you think that Jian Wushuang could gain recognition from the emperor himself? King Zhansong asked curiously. Humph? Recognition? Dream on. My father was one of the strongest overlords in the First Era. His standards are extremely high. It will be extremely difficult to meet those standards, King Xing smiled coldly. I bet he can't even make it past the door inside the grave, much less gain recognition. The measures my father placed around the grave are profound and unpredictable. These measures cannot not differentiate ally from foe. In the past, I tried to enter forcibly as there was an extremely urgent matter. I almost died from those measures. Even though Jian Wushuang is stronger than me, it is also impossible for him to make it past the different defensive measures my father put in place. King Zhansong was stunned. King Luoyu, King Guyu and the other ancient gods became worried upon hearing this. Look, he is going to enter, a voice shouted out loud. Everyone turned their heads and looked toward the grave. Jian Wushuang stood at the base of the staircase in front of the entrance. He lifted his right leg and stepped onto the first step. The moment his right foot hit the first step, he felt an aura suppressing him, trying to stop him from advancing further. This aura targeted the bloodline power and had no effect on one's power level. Jian Wushuang smiled when he felt this aura. Immediately, another aura of an extremely powerful ancient god bloodline burst forth. Chapter 2076. The 9 war spirits. Jian Wushuang had inherited Wuhan's ancient god bloodline. This bloodline was pure and gave him complete bloodline power. The first bloodline of the ancient god emperor was less pure compared to that of Jian Wushuang. Under the effect of suppression of bloodline power, most royal ancient gods would have to walk slowly, one step at a time up the steps. Some of those whose wills were weaker might not even reach the top of the steps. On the other hand, Jian Wushuang had walked up quickly. It was as though there was no suppression at all, and he walked without feeling any resistance. Even thought the suppression got stronger as the number of steps climbed increased, Jian Wushuang was not affected. Within moments he finished more than half the steps and he was not slowing down. This brat. King Xing was standing on the void. Upon seeing how easily Jian Wushuang was walking up the stairs, he squinted his eyes and muttered, "As much as I do not want him to be the next ancient god emperor, I have to admit his bloodline is extremely pure. It might even be on par with my father's bloodline." King Xing, the Sword Emperor, is going to finish walking all the steps, King Zhansong said. This is normal. My father's first measure is simply suppression of bloodline power. Any royal ancient god can persist through this first measure as long as they have the will. His bloodline is even purer than most ancient gods with the royal bloodline, hence this will barely pose any problem to him, King Xing said indifferently. However, my father left behind 3 measures. This first measure is the easiest. The next 2 will not be so easy for him to pass. King Xing understood the measures well as he too had once tried to enter forcibly. Just like King Xing said, Jian Wushuang walked up the 100 steps easily without stopping. As soon as he set foot at open area the top, a few blurry mirages started to solidify. A total of 9 blue mirages solidified. Their faces were unrecognizable. Every single one of them were extremely large and they each held a different chaos divine weapon. All 9 figures scanned the area and locked on to Jian Wushuang. Intruders. Those who dare to disturb the ancient god emperor in his sleep shall die. A cold, robotic voice came out of one of the figures' mouth as the 9 of them attacked. Their aura was terrifying, and every aura was targeted and focused on Jian Wushuang. He frowned deeply as he took the situation seriously. He could tell that the 9 figures were very powerful. Boom, 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 boom. The 9 figures attacked. One of the figures held a bat that was 10 meters long and as thick as a bucket. It looked like a small hill from Jian Wushuang's perspective. However, it looked like a small plant in the hands of the figure. The figure swung the bat as it crashed towards Jian Wushuang with the momentum of heaven and earth. Another figure had 2 metal hammers for its hands. The metal hammers were gigantic. After a loud bellow, the hammers morphed into lightning and thunder as they appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. Even though the aura was not felt, one could tell how strong the attack was just by seeing the electric sparks. Another figure morphed into a humongous ancient beast in golden armor and crashed towards Jian Wushuang. He looked like a flying battle fortress. As for the other blurry figures, each attack was definitely powerful. One of the figures was an ancient god and he used the ancient god finger. What a powerful aura. What are these? Jian Wushuang thought to himself, shocked. He swung his sword at once. A special sword essence could be felt. Jian Wushuang started to devour everything around him. He looked like a huge dark vortex. Sword Principle Shen Luo Mixed Element Spirit. Pong, 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 pong. 9 loud clashes were heard as the 9 different attacks were deflected one at a time. However, the attacks were so strong that Jian Wushuang backed off a few steps. Oh my. Everyone here at least has the fighting power of a top-tier Stage 1 Great Emperor. 2 of them have fighting powers equivalent to a Stage 2 Great Emperor. Jian Wushuang was surprised. People like Abysmal Saint Master were at the level of a top-tier Great Emperor. There were very few people at this level in the entire eternal chaotic world. However, the weakest of the 9 figures possessed fighting power at this level. 2 of them even had the fighting power of a Stage 2 Great Emperor. The battling power of this group was too powerful. King Xing, King Luo Yu and the other ancient gods were observing Jian Wushuang using their soul power. Their faces turned pale when they saw the 9 figures appear. These 9 figures are the 9 top-tier experts who fought with my father. They are the strongest under my father's command. Back in the first era, every single one of them had the fighting power of a top-tier Stage 2 Great Emperor. 2 of them were even top-tier Stage 2 Great Emperors. King Xing scoffed. As the first era ended, these 9 great warriors died along with my father. However, they were absolutely loyal to him, hence they still guard him till this day in the form of a war spirit. Even though the 9 war spirits now are weaker than they were in their prime, their fighting power is still very powerful. Furthermore, all 9 are fighting Jian Wushuang together. Not any ordinary man can enter his grave. Due to this, the second measure my father put in place outside the ancient emperor grave. Back when King Xing tried to enter the ancient emperor grave forcibly, he fought the 9 war spirits. He almost died on that day. Luckily, he had a powerful self-defense mechanism which allowed him to pass this test and move on. On the other hand, Jian Wushuang. Even though the Sword Emperor has high fighting power, his self-defense mechanism might not be as strong as mine. Without it, he definitely cannot survive for 30 seconds. Chapter 2077. Last line of defense. 7 of the 9 war spirits had fighting powers equivalent to that of a top-tier Stage 1 Great Emperor, while the remaining 2 had power equivalent to that of a Stage 2 Great Emperor. It would be difficult for anyone to remain alive after 30 seconds of frenzy when they worked together to try to kill someone. King Xing exploited his powerful self-defense mechanism and barely survived. He was skeptical that Jianghu would have a stronger self-defense mechanism than him. At the entrance of the ancient emperor grave, Jianghu was surrounded by the 9 war spirits. The various ancient gods were shocked when he launched the attack. Instead of experiencing fear, Jianghu was excited to fight these 9 war spirits. He is courageous. Even though he knows that the 9 war spirits are powerful, he still dares to fight them head-on. King Xing smirked coldly and pitted Jianghu. As expected, even though Jianghu showcased extraordinary fighting power, he was instantly at a disadvantage when the 9 war spirits attacked. Not too long after, a war spirit landed a hit on him. Even though the war spirit was only at the power level of a Stage 1 Great Emperor, that blow was enough to injure any Great Emperor. However, Jianghu just grunted and continued fighting. It was as though that attack had had no effect on him. What? King Xing was stunned. The following scene made his irises constrict as he was shocked again. When fighting the 9 war spirits, Jianghu did not even try to dodge the attacks. He simply attacked the war spirits in a frenzy. He fought the 9 war spirits alone without fear. The attacks from the 9 spirits, including those from the 2 war spirits who had the same power level as a Stage 2 Great Emperor, would land on Jianghu occasionally. However, there was no effect on Jianghu as he continued with the onslaught. His fighting power was at his peak, and there was no sign of any injury. Instead of weakening, his aura grew and became even stronger. 10 seconds, 20 seconds. In the blink of an eye, 30 seconds had passed. The 9 war spirits who were attacking Jianghu disintegrated into nothingness and a path was revealed. Jianghu smiled lightly and walked down this path. The ancient gods outside the ancient emperor's grave. Especially King Xing, how is this possible? My self-defense mechanism is my most powerful ability. But even I could barely survive for 30 seconds when attacked by the 9 war spirits. How could a sword emperor be unharmed after that ordeal? He fought the 9 war spirits, alone, head-on for 30 seconds and came out unharmed? Even after he suffered direct hits from the war spirits? How can a self-defense mechanism be so powerful? King Xing widened his eyes as surprise was written all over his face. Jianghu performance had exceeded his wildest imagination. However, what he did not know was that Jianghu had fought 13 Stage 2 Great Emperors back in 3 Emperors' World for an extended period of time. What was the result? He was unharmed. On the other hand, those weaker Great Emperors among the 13 were severely wounded. On the other hand, the pressure that the 9 war spirits gave Jianghu was similar to that of the pressure the 13 Great Emperors put on Jianghu. Hence, he could handle the war spirits easily. As for the self-defense mechanism that King Xing was so proud of, Jianghu had perfect chaotic holy body which was many times stronger. Within the ancient emperor's grave, Jianghu followed the tunnel and walked forward and ran into a large, old door. On the door there was a sculpture of an odd exotic beast. It was infused with secret restrictions. These secret restrictions were flowing as though they were alive. This door was the entrance to the inside of the ancient emperor's grave. Every million years, this door would open when the ancient emperor's grave opened itself to the rest of the world. Just then the door was closed as the time was not right. A general in black armor stood in front of the door. The general was completely covered in black armor. Only his facial features could be seen. He was at least 5 meters tall and held a black spear. He stood like a statue, motionless, in front of the door. It was as though he had been there since the beginning of time. Jianghu couldn't sense any aura from this man. Jianghu looked towards the general in black armor. Even though he couldn't sense any aura from the general, he felt pressured the moment he laid eyes on him. This pressure was on another level compared to King Xing and Great Emperor Zisu, who were all Stage 2 Great Emperors. Outside the ancient emperor's grave, King Xing and the audience too saw the general in black armor. This is the third and last line of defense my father set. King Xing thought as he clenched his fists. Back then he had entered the grave and managed to pass the first 2 levels, suppression using bloodline power and the 9 war spirits. In the end he had met the general in front of the door. Here, he had stopped and could not advance any further. In front of the door. The moment Jianghu appeared, the general in black armor, who seemed to have stood motionless for all eternity, opened his eyes. A flash of dim light, which was as fast as lightning, burst forth towards Jian Wushuang. The time for the grave to open has not come. None shall enter. You there, leave this place immediately, the general in black armor said coldly. All he did was ask Jian Wushuang to leave, contrary to the war spirits in the second line of defense who had tried to kill Jian Wushuang. When the 9 spirits appeared, they had attacked Jian Wushuang immediately and tried to kill him, though they failed. If I were to wait for this grave to open by itself, I would have to wait another 700,000 years. I cannot afford to wait for such a long time. Sorry, but he'll have to enter forcibly. Jian Wushuang smiled with absolute confidence. Jian Wushuang stopped talking and attacked the general in black armor. A terrifying aura burst forth and the general gripped his spear tightly when Jian Wushuang attacked. Chapter 2078, The Black Armored General Xiao. A merciless spear pierced through. That speed words could not express. By the time Jian Wushuang heard that ear-piercing blast from the void, the spear was already in front of him. Jian Wushuang had moved first. Logically he should be the one to make the first strike, but before he could even start on his sword skills, the spear had reached him. Hitch. With a snigger, Jian Wushuang's blood mountain sword swiftly took it down. This was the strongest skill within sword principle Shen Luo, the blast rainstorm. With a gong, the sound of the strike resonated. Jian Wushuang could feel an immense power traveling across his blood mountain sword. This power, without a doubt, had surpassed second stage Great Emperor's powers. It was a third stage power. And from the looks of it, this one move was slightly stronger than all of Demon King Chenye's powers had been back in Three Emperors' world. This strength traveled up towards his body. The strong body he had after cultivating the immortal celestial body at this moment was roughed up pretty badly too. Jian Wushuang quickly retreated. As he regained his balance, the divine power within him started doing its work, and soon his injuries were all recovered. Stage 3 stronger than Demon King Chenyu? Jian Wushuang licked his lips and stared at the black-armored general. Junior, you're not stronger than me. With me guarding here you won't make it through. Leave. The general opened his mouth again. Won't make it through? We'll see about that. Jian Wushuang sniggered and attempted to strike again. Blockhead. The general's eyes radiated death as the spear in his hand was once again put into action. Spear strikes came one after the other. The general's fighting power, once ignited, was indeed of a third-level Great Emperor. Faced with such an expert, Jian Wushuang could not possibly win. Suppressed at first contact, Jian Wushuang could only now resist with his almost invincible self-defense mechanism. Outside the ancient emperor's residence stood many ancient gods, all astonished by the ongoing battle. So powerful. That black-armored general, he's too strong. The Sword Emperor himself is already an extraordinary being, having suppressed King Chen Xing. But against the general it feels like a whole new level. The disparity is quite big. The Sword Emperor has been completely suppressed. The ancient gods could not help giving praise. I knew it, this Sword Emperor may be strong after passing those 2 obstacles, but passing the last challenge, that's impossible. Demon King Chen Xing sniggered, a grin on his face in front of the residence's huge gates. Jian Wushuang was still being suppressed by the general in an almost pathetic manner, relying purely on his self-defense mechanism to keep up. Junior, my patience has its limits. You can't defeat me. Leave now or don't blame me for teaching you a lesson. The black-armored general's voice was cold and harsh. Teaching me a lesson? We'll see about that. Jian Wushuang smiled back without hesitation. That instantly infuriated the general. He stopped holding back. Oh. An ear-piercing roar resonated through the entire void, and even Jian Wushuang couldn't help but look up. What he saw was a deep, subtle flash. It was pitch black, with not a single mark of impurity, glaring as it shone. Not only Jian Wushuang, but even the ancient gods outside the ancient emperor's grave were mesmerized by it. This eye-catching flash was actually the eerie shadow of the general's spear. The spear had left the general's hand with such explosive speed, it was already reaching Jian Wushuang. Too fast. A speed beyond Jian Wushuang's comprehension. Gosh, I'm not going to be able to block it? Jian Wushuang was astonished. He had intended to use his swordsmanship to block it, but found himself unable to catch up with the spear. He could do nothing but watch as the spear approached. Ultimately, without obstruction, the spear pierced through his body. A power so strong it could have pierced heaven and earth went through him. Jian Wushuang shook. That power was weakened by half passing through his 5-gem amour, but whatever remained was still powerful enough to pierce a bowl-sized hole through his body. Jian Wushuang, still in shock, was taken aback by the blast. Is he dead? The general, with death in his eyes, gazed upon Jian Wushuang. But suddenly Jian Wushuang, still being thrown aback from the blast, stopped abruptly within the void. Jian Wushuang had his eyes fixated upon the general once again, the hole in his body now long gone. What? The black-armored general was obviously surprised. He had just put a hole through Jian Wushuang. Normal cultivators would have either been dead or greatly wounded by now. But the man before him, he showed no sign of weakness, his injury had already recovered. His recovery speed, how could it be so fast? Impressive. That was quite the spear. If I'm not wrong, there were some rules of order within it, right? Jian Wushuang said with a tinge of excitement. You know about that? The general was surprised, restraining himself. He stood statue-like once again, speaking coldly. Your self-defense mechanisms and restorative powers are impressive. I am unable to kill you. But you are still unable to pass me. So please leave. Unable? I don't think so. Jian Wushuang gave a cold laugh. Ancient God Emperor, you thought I wouldn't be able to tell someone was controlling this body I'm fighting with? The general's pupils constricted upon the words Ancient God Emperor. A sharp glare could be seen in his eyes. The method of planting some consciousness within this Dao soldier, therefore controlling it? I've done it before. These kinds of tricks are no mystery to me, Jian Wushuang sniggered. The Dao soldier you control is very powerful himself, but a Dao soldier remains a Dao soldier. I can tell with a glance. Controlling a Dao soldier, demonstrating third-stage great emperor powers with rules of order with the power of consciousness alone. Within these grounds, who else could it be but you, Ancient God Emperor? Chapter 2079 Ancient God Emperor. Under the huge gates, the black-armored general's eyes shimmered in astonishment, fixated on Jian Wushuang. After a moment of silence, the general finally spoke. You are smart, but even if you know this Dao soldier's being controlled by the Ancient God Emperor, what else can you do? Haha, if you were alive, defending your gates with your consciousness-controlled Dao soldier alone would suffice. But what's left of you is that very strand of consciousness, and a brittle one. It's already extremely difficult for you to remain within these gates, don't even bother mentioning engaging in battle. Which means to say, the longer your soldier fights with me, the more damage it brings to your strand of consciousness. That's why you didn't want to fight me from the very beginning, convincing me to leave. Am I right? Jian Wushuang grinned as he watched the general. The general was fully covered in his black armor, so Jian Wushuang could not see if he had had a change in facial expression. But he did sense something change through the general's eyes. Under these circumstances, the only way to block me is to kill me swiftly, which you had just attempted. You couldn't do it. Even if I can't defeat you, as long as I force you to engage in battle with me, let's see how long your consciousness will last, Jian Wushuang sniggered. The general's glance shifted, facing Jian Wushuang again. You're right, with simply my consciousness I can't block you. Since it has to be this way, come on in. After being said, the ancient residence gates, scribbled with weird marks and drawings of ancient beasts, rumbled and slowly opened behind the general. A broad pathway appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. As for that black-armored general? He was now stationed beside the residence's gates, eyes shut, reverting to his original statue form. Seeing the gates now being opened for him, Jian Wushuang showed a faint smile and made his way in. Outside the ancient emperor's residence, countless ancient gods had their eyes fixated on that entrance. When they saw the gates open, each and every one of them was astonished. How is that even possible? King Xing was even more bewildered. He knew how terrifying the general was. When he had first fought the general, a strike of the spear had been enough to badly wound him. He had almost lost his life then. Without a choice he had had to leave. But now Jian Wushuang had even defeated the general? He actually made it through the 3 obstacles my father left behind? King Xing appeared extremely gloomy before snorting. Even if he made it in, my father may not approve him. My father was one of the strongest in the first era, you think it's easy receiving his approval? That thought remained lingering in King Xing's heart. The huge, ancient place was a place of wonders, even challenges could be found within it. But these challenges were reserved for the weaker ancient god clan people when they entered once every 1 million years. It meant nothing to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang had made his way through without any more obstacles. Before long he reached the deepest part of the residence. There, a hazy figure was seen sitting cross-legged. It was a strong man in gold robes, his height beyond 3 meters. There he sat. The first impression he gave people was the word Lionheart, and within it an undeniable authority and dignity. This air of authority was as if he had the entire world under his foot. Countless experts were simply ants to him. In a glance, Jian Wushuang knew who the other person was. "Greetings to you, ancient god emperor." Jian Wushuang gave a small bow as a form of respect. "Jian Wushuang?" The ancient god emperor gave him a glance. "You're good. Only an 8-star ancient god? That's simply an emperor god amongst human cultivators. But your fighting power is obviously on par with second-stage great emperors. Even my 9 great war spirits couldn't stop you. Such impressive leapfrogging skills. You remind me of someone by the name of Emperor Bai. Have you heard of this person?" Jian Wushuang's expression changed. Emperor Bai was from the first era. Of course the ancient god emperor knew about him. Emperor Bai is not the leader of the Sanctuary Alliance. Both he and I practice inverse cultivation, Jian Wushuang replied. Indeed, the ancient god emperor smiled indifferently, unsurprised. In the beginning that kiddo Emperor Bai was the same as you, nothing more than an emperor god. But his fighting power kept the weaker second-stage great emperors real busy. People then started to infer that it had to do with his unique method of cultivation, leading to the discovery of inverse cultivation. There were a few third-stage great emperors back then who were interested in his method, and wanted to snatch it away from him. In the end, the third-stage great emperors were powerless, even though they had joined hands, even though Kiddo had peak second-stage fighting powers. When he surpassed great emperor levels, no one could touch him. The Kiddo's defense mechanisms were the same as yours. Hearing that, Jian Wushuang gasped silently. He had heard things regarding Emperor Bai, like how he was one of the strongest during the First Era. But he could not be compared to elites like Ancient God Emperor and Sword Emperor Dugu. Furthermore, Ancient God Emperor was way more ancient than Emperor Bai. It only made sense that he called Emperor Bai Kiddo. But the Emperor Bai of today couldn't be compared to how he was back in the First Era. According to Emperor Bai, he was now at the peak of the 3rd stage, almost between that and the 4th stage. That kind of fighting power would be slightly stronger than Ancient God Emperor's prime. I didn't like that, Kiddo. Nor do I like you. Ancient God Emperor gazed upon Jian Wushuang with that same air of authority surrounding him and said, "You know, it's hard to keep my strand of consciousness around. The reason why the gates open once every 1 million years is because it takes a lot of energy to control whatever I need once it opens, and this energy only fully regenerates after 1 million years. You barging in this time has forced my consciousness to awaken. Having offended me this way, if I had more than simply that strand of consciousness, I would have killed you." As he spoke, a murderous aura covered Jian Wushuang. Please go to read the latest chapters for free. Chapter 2080 Soul Memory confirmed. Hong, that murderous aura covered Jian Wushuang. The ancient god emperor may have had nothing left but his strand of consciousness, but that was more than enough to shake the heavens. The awesome, murderous aura of the ancient god emperor would have brought others to heal by now, but not him. Jian Wushuang remained standing, emotionless. The aura was nothing more than a gentle wind to his face. Composed, the ancient god emperor's face broadened to a grin, that murderous aura of his now long gone. "What do you seek, kiddo?" "I want to be a new emperor of the ancient god clan, and I need your approval," Jian Wushuang replied. "Haha, the ancient god clan has always prioritized bloodline over everything. You possess the perfect bloodline, which is something I myself dare not claim. That along with your skill set, the entire clan should have embraced you by now. Why seek my approval?" The ancient god emperor smiled. "The other clansmen are naturally fine with it, but King Xing insists," Jian Wushuang replied. "Xing? That kid." The ancient god emperor's expression changed. He had 3 sons, of which Xing was the youngest and his dearest. When the first era collapsed, it had cost him an arm and a leg to keep Xing alive along with others. King Xing's abilities are decent. I'm hoping to win him over. With him by my side, he'll be better equipped to take charge of the ancient god clan, Jian Wushuang said. "I see," the ancient god emperor replied in realization and laughed. "Kiddo, I have high standards, you should know that by now. You want my approval, you'll have to let me get a good look at you, don't resist." As he spoke, a mysterious power rose from his body and charged towards Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang frowned, but he could feel that the power was of no threat to him, so he did not resist. The power entered into his body, and blanketed his substantive soul. "Jian Wushuang realized. Checking my soul memory. Impressive move. Soul memory refers to the memory one possesses the moment he gains his soul power, recording everything the person experiences. Knowing the ancient god emperor's intentions, Jian Wushuang did not hide much, except for some hidden memories about his past, which he locked instantly. Even the ancient god emperor could not access it, only viewing what Wushuang wanted him to see. That did not frustrate the ancient god emperor as he started to view these memories. From these memories he saw two important things. The first memory was when he kept the pillar intact with the lineage of stars, leading to the demise of the Star Palace Master. Jian Wushuang, with thunder-like strikes, had used the lineage of stars, and managed to survive against the punitive expeditions of other forces, allowing the lineage of stars to be recognized as the top powers by the Sanctuary Alliance. The second memory was outside the Green Fire world. Jian Wushuang was alone, against the experts in the eternal chaotic world. Against so many enemies from so many clans and tribes, he stood firm. This Green Fire world is my hometown. Whoever dares lay a finger on it will die. Asking the cultivators to leave the Green Fire world? They'll be the first to say never. So will the countless cultivators on this land, and our forefathers who came before us. Even if it means burning to ashes, we will fight for this land, till the very last man is down, till the last drop of blood is shed, we will never give in. Every word Jian Wushuang said, including the aura of defiance to look death calmly in the face, was all captured by the ancient god emperor. Yet the ancient god emperor's eyes showed nostalgia. That had been a long time ago when the first era was about to collapse. Countless experts from the first era, himself included, had all looked death straight in the eye during their battle. That unyielding defiance was to protect what they had. Exactly the same as Jian Wushuang with his Green Fire world. Seeing this, the ancient god emperor could not help but display excitement. Haha, I kinda like you now, kiddo, the emperor burst into laughter. For someone to look death straight in the eye for your friends and family? I like people like you. Do I have your approval? Jian Wushuang asked the emperor. I approve, of course I do. If an able leader like yourself is willing to carry this responsibility of leading the ancient god clan, I believe we will survive through all challenges. Furthermore, not only will I make you the new emperor for our ancient god clan, I'll present you with the greatest gift you can find over here. The ancient god emperor's laughter resonated, and with a flip of his hand, 3 drops of gilded blood essence appeared. This. Jian Wushuang was mesmerized by it. He could feel the billowing power within those 3 drops. The ancient god power, purer and stronger than any other blood essences he had seen. The ancient god emperor said solemnly, great pains were made to form the blood essence, every drip containing immense ancient god power. I've only collected 5 in my life, of which 1 I transferred to Xing in my era. The remaining 4 followed me to this grave. Many years ago, a lad named Luo Yu came and passed my test, so I passed him 1, leaving 3. These 3 drops I had intended to slowly pass down to future generations. But now I've decided to give you everything. Cultivate and absorb it, it'll help you too. As he finished talking, the 3 drops of blood were already floating towards Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang was alerted but did not reject it. The 3 drops immediately integrated themselves into his body, the ancient god power billowing from within. Jian Wushuang started to cultivate the blood essence to the best of his ability. It goes without saying that 3 drops of blood were too much. 1 drop was beyond Jian Wushuang's imagination, and now 3? Please go to read the latest chapters for free. Chapter 2081A Big Coincidence. Hualala, the boundless ancient god power was bursting within Jian Wushuang, and with that came unprecedented pain. Jian Wushuang's face darkened. It was fortunate that he could resist the power of the 3 drops of blood essence bursting within him. If it were another person, he would have long exploded. Absorb as much as you want, kiddo. The ancient god emperor was laughing, his eyes sparkling. Besides these 3 drops, I'll teach you 1 secret skill. This is my favorite one I learned years ago at the ruins of the ancient era. Took me ages to understand it. Lucky you. With that, the ancient god emperor extended his palm, and smacked Jian Wushuang's forehead. Information billowed towards Jian Wushuang. It contained many memories of how to use that skill. Jian Wushuang himself recognized it immediately. Moon-picking skill. It's the moon-picking skill. Jian Wushuang flinched. The moon-picking skill was known as the strongest secret skill amongst the 3 big skills in the ancient god clan. This skill, although formidable, had its limitations compared to the other 2 skills in Jian Wushuang's opinion. It felt controversial to call it the top skill, because the star destruction skill felt more useful. But now, with this trove of information, Jian Wushuang finally understood why the moon-picking skill was the top skill in the clan. The moon-picking skill he had practiced in the past was incomplete. Yes, incomplete. He had only grasped a bit of the moon-picking skill. What he could use was naturally only a small portion of the skill's true power. The true power of the moon-picking skill was how the ancient god emperor emerged from the crowd as the best during the First Era. Although the ancient god emperor was one of the strongest during the First Era, it was nothing to the experts and demons of the ancient era. He only thought of the moon-picking skill while amongst the ruins of the ancient era, a pure coincidence. Still, proudly perfecting the skill was the ancient god emperor's proudest moment. The skill may not have come from the ancient era, but it was certainly much more powerful than many that did. The skill was the real deal, and now the ancient god emperor was giving it to him. The boundless information was streaming through Jian Wushuang's mind, along with that specific scene. That scene showed usage of the skill, and the key was the usage of the power of spacetime. Jian Wushuang was completely stunned. Specifically speaking, he was completely fascinated. The moon-plucking skill is a spacetime-related skill. What it involved was deep and profound. When Jian Wushuang first arrived at the ancient god sanctuary and learned the skill, as the ship went down he gained much understanding of spacetime. Now as he received the entire skill he felt the same. His understanding of spacetime was always stuck at the pinnacle of the 8th level of Doctrine Palace, stuck at a plateau. But now he felt as though a brand new door had gradually opened in front of him. If he took the time to understand more, the door would open completely, and he will be able to cross it. Coincidence? What an opportunity of a lifetime. Jian Wushuang immediately understood that and naturally started to focus. As he was absorbing the entire moon-plucking skill, he was also understanding the unique ways of spacetime powers, all while his body was cultivating the 3 drops of ancient god power. All 3 actions were happening concurrently. Weaker cultivators would find this impossible to accomplish, but not almighty-level experts they could do for if they wanted to. As time passed, Jian Wushuang's bloodline power of the ancient clan was increasing, his aura now increasingly stronger. His understanding of spacetime was also improving exponentially. This happened for 3 days. After 3 days, the ancient emperor's residence finally went quiet. At the residence's core, Jian Wushuang stood quietly, his divine power and aura finally calming down. His eyes were opened, and within it existed a concentrated, powerful light. Those 2 streaks of light in his eyes were like lightning, sparkling. Previously there were only 8 ancient god stars between his eyes. But now there were 9. The 9 stars meant he had finally reached 9-star ancient god levels. A 9-star ancient god, specifically a 9-star of the ancient clan. This level meant he had reached great emperor levels amongst human cultivators. Reading these levels, it meant that Jian Wushuang's ancient clan bloodline power would undergo unprecedented changes, its explosive power would definitely be an improvement. This also meant that when Jian Wushuang performed the ancient god clan's secret skills and unique skills, he'd be more powerful than ever before. His divine body had now also improved, not as ridiculously as when he jumped from the first stage of the 7th step of inverse cultivation to the 2nd stage, but equally significant. This was all thanks to the complete absorption of the 3 drops of ancient god blood essence, along with learning the complete moon-picking skill. During the skill-imparting process, Jian Wushuang had also interacted with greater knowledge of spacetime. Now that the moon-picking skill had truly been imparted to him, he had also made improvements regarding his spacetime understanding, and reached 9th level Doctrine Palace standards. The 9th level seemed close to the pinnacle of the 8th level, but were in fact miles apart. Previously, Jian Wushuang had only had an advantage against other great emperors in terms of pure power, but not his understanding. Every great emperor had a minimal 9th level Doctrine Palace understanding, and now Jian Wushuang had finally caught up. This step had caused a qualitative change in his overall power. Before I stepped into the ancient emperor's grave, I was one of the top few 2nd stage great emperors with the help of my inverse cultivation, immemorial celestial body and more, but now, please go to read the latest chapters for free. Chapter 2082 Submission. The pinnacle of 2nd stage, the best around. Even if I got caught up with a 3rd stage great emperor like that demon king Chen, I won't be able to defeat him per se, but at least he'll be able to put up a fight. Jian Wushuang clutched his hands as he felt the greatly improved bloodline power flowing within him along with the power to controlling surrounding time-space. He was ecstatic. He had analyzed previously, and as long as he improved in understanding in time-space doctrine or reincarnation doctrine, he would reach the pinnacle 2nd stage great emperor levels. Now, not only had he made that step forward in the time-space doctrine, he was now a 9-star ancient god too. Naturally, he was now stronger than previously expected. Thank you, O ancient emperor. Jian Wushuang bowed in front of him, but this time it was sincere. After all, the ancient god emperor was the reason behind this newfound strength. No need to thank me. If you are able to lead the ancient god clan out of that calamity, simply keeping the clan alive will be good enough for me, the ancient god emperor laughed heartily. Oh ancient emperor, what calamity are you referring to? Jianghu Shuang frowned. No need to rush, you'll encounter it soon, or maybe you've already have. Time will tell, the ancient god emperor smiled faintly. The reason I left my strand of consciousness here was to find a new leader for the ancient god clan. Now that I have this residence in my consciousness, he has no reason to be around. As he spoke, Jianghu Shuang could feel the surrounding residence shaking crazily. This form of vibration was violent in unprecedented degrees as major boulders collapsed. At the same time, the already hazy, translucent figure that was the ancient god emperor's consciousness was beginning to fade away. Jianghu Shuang naturally understood what was happening. With a deep breath, he took another bow. Farewell, O great emperor. The ancient god emperor kept that smile the entire way, eyes fixated on Jianghu Shuang as he eventually became nothing. Ancient god emperor, the super expert of the first era, had now vanished. Outside the residence, King Chen Xing, King Luo Yu and other experts from the ancient god clan were waiting quietly. What Jianghu Shuang did outside the gates was within their line of sight. But as the gates opened, what happened after Jianghu Shuang entered? No one knew. They waited for 3 days and nothing. It's already been 3 days, what is the Sword Emperor doing inside? King Chen Xing was stone-faced. He still did not believe Jianghu Shuang would receive his father's approval. But at that moment, Hong Long Long, such an enormous place began to shake crazily. The shaking became more and more intense, even shaking the heavens. What's going on? What's happening? The ancient gods were all confused and looked towards the grave in astonishment. Suddenly, an aura of unyielding authority and magnanimity rose up from the grave to the heavens. Slowly, it formed a hazy figure of a man in gold robes. The experts all seemed like ants being so high above the heavens. This aura? King Chen Xing stared daggers at that figure that rose from the grave. Father. Chen Xing called out immediately. King? Oh my king. The ancient gods below all looked up in awe and fervor. Ancient God Emperor, the first leader of the ancient god clan, was an irreplaceable figure for many ancient gods. And now the ancient god Emperor spoke slowly as the rest watched. That unyielding authority could be felt in his voice as it resonated around the entire area. From today onwards, Jianghu Shuang will be the new leader of the ancient god clan. All clansmen who dare disobey or disrespect him will have their actions seen as open defiance. There will be no mercy for those who do as such. As he ended his speech, the ancient god emperor's figure gradually dissipated into thin air. The enormous grave at this moment collapsed entirely. The entire place was now gone, along with the ancient god emperor's presence and aura. Everyone stared blankly at the ruins, yet to comprehend what had just happened. Suddenly, from the ruins a figure appeared. He was not as tall as the ancient god emperor, but his aura of authority was no weaker than the god emperor's. As he walked over step by step, as if some sort of magic, his presence and authority grew in the hearts and minds of many ancient gods. Without hesitation, King Luo Yu was the first to get on his knees and greet Jianghu Shuang. Greetings, ancient emperor. Greetings, ancient emperor. The many 7- and 8-starred ancient gods did the same. Even the 9-starred ancient god King Zhang, after being slightly shaken up, got down on his knees as well. Only one remained standing. King Chen Xing. Jianghu Shuang, with his gaze of unyielding authority, gazed upon King Chen Xing. A strong bloodline power was applied to King Chen Xing immediately. King Chen Xing, do you insist on being this way? Jianghu Shuang's voice was cold. King Chen Xing trembled and finally showed a bitter smile. He took a deep breath. In front of others, he bent the knee and greeted Jianghu Shuang with a strong resounding voice. Chen Xing, here to greet O ancient emperor. From this day forward, your wish is my command, and if I disobey, may the heavens punish me. Finally, a smile could be seen on Jianghu Shuang. Luo Wang City, inside a great hall. The strongest experts from the ancient god were all there. King Chen Xing, King Luo Yu, King Zhang, along with the lords King Guyu and King Tong and the other clan leaders were all present. There was almost 100 people packed inside the hall. They represented almost all of the ancient god clan. And on the top of the hall, on that unique, mighty throne, sat Jianghu Shuang. The ancient gods below all looked up to Jianghu Shuang in awe and fervor. O ancient emperor, I have asked the clansmen to start the coronation ceremony preparations. It can proceed 1 month from now, King Luo Yu said respectfully. The ceremony can wait. No rush. Jianghu Shuang waved his hand. A new champion and a new leader had emerged, Naturally a grand ceremony was necessary. But circumstances were dire, and Jian Wushuang had no time for anything else. King Qin Xing, Jian Wushuang said. Please go to read the latest chapters for free. Chapter 2083 Invitation. Ancient Emperor, King Qin Xing immediately looked over. Before I arrived here, you were the person in charge of the ancient god sanctuary. You should have received a message from the Sanctuary Alliance, right? Jian Wushuang asked. Indeed, King Qin Xing nodded. The message came from Ancestor Tianqin personally from the Alliance, stating the calamity the eternal chaotic world was facing. I told him I'd prepare everything that's needed, but the brawl within the ancient god clan hindered that process. Jian Wushuang looked at King Qin Xing. He understood what had really happened. He knew King Qin Xing was going to get rid of King Luo Yu and others, then get the ancient god clan to step up once everything had settled down. Unfortunately, everything had spiraled beyond his control. The Three Emperors World, Holocaust Sect, Acheron Palace, they're all public enemies of the eternal chaotic world. What they do not only threatens the Sanctuary Alliance and the human domain, but the entire eternal chaotic world. We cannot avoid this battle, we must prepare for it, Jian Wushuang instructed. King Qin Xing nodded. Now that everything had settled down within the ancient god clan, and Jian Wushuang had given the order, all they needed to do was gather the experts for battle. That was not hard. Besides our clan, other tribes and clans should have received the same message, but no response has been heard from them since. We need to think of a way to speed them up. Jian Wushuang's voice was clear. The ancient gods below the throne looked up towards Jian Wushuang. King Luo Yu, didn't you want to organize the coronation ceremony? If it's a ceremony, a lot of experts from different clans will be invited, right? Jian Wushuang asked. King Luo Yu nodded. If that's the case, use this ceremony to get all the experts over. Not just the other top 3 tribes but every clan that has the ability. As long as they have one almighty within the clan, send an invitation to them, and get the person in charge to attend. At least someone with a voice in decision-making. As the ancient god clan, this shouldn't be tough to do, right? Jian Wushuang said solemnly. Rest assured, ancient emperor, we'll make the arrangements right away, guaranteeing every important person will be there, King Luo Yu replied. Good, make the arrangements now. Remember, be quick about it, Jian Wushuang replied. Yes. King Luo Yu and the others quickly made their way out for the preparations. Jian Wushuang was left alone on the throne, and let out a slight sigh. He was weirded out. Ancient God Emperor? The leader of such an awesome clan, I could get used to this, Jian Wushuang smiled. At this moment, a transmission token from his Chen Kuan ring was activated. Jian Wushuang. It was Emperor Bai. Oh, Emperor Bai, Jian Wushuang replied immediately. What's your situation now? I have taken the entire ancient god clan under my wing as an ancient god emperor, the real deal. The coronation ceremony will begin in a month, Jian Wushuang laughed. Wow, ancient god emperor? Congrats, Emperor Bai laughed. The other clans? Those I do not know about. I have made the arrangements for their leaders or decision-making elders to attend my coronation ceremony. I'll discuss it with them during the ceremony, Jian Wushuang replied. No need to rush, the dark millstone has stopped. The next battle will not be a simple one. Troops from the Three Emperors world won't be able to make their moves for now, Emperor Bai replied. Understood, Jian Wushuang nodded. Also, I need to talk to you about something else, Emperor Bai's voice sounded serious. Our Sanctuary Alliance scout at the Sky-Devouring Sanctuary has news, spotting experts from either the Archelon Palace or Holocaust Sect interacting with the Sky-Devouring clan. The Sky-Devouring clan's actions are getting suspicious too. Take note. Sky-Devouring clan? Jian Wushuang's facial expression changed. There were 4 top clans amongst the special tribes. The Sky-Devouring clan was one of the 4, like the ancient god clan. Both had their own sanctuaries, and their strength and influence were not to be messed with. But now, suspected experts from the Archelon Palace or Holocaust Sect were seen on Sky-Devouring grounds. Suspicious actions from the Sky-Devouring clan themselves? Emperor Bai, what you're saying is that the Sky-Devouring clan is now siding with the Three Emperors world? Jian Wushuang asked. I can't be sure about that, but it's possible. After all, that clan's the most eccentric of the 4 top clans. The other 3 would never switch sides. But them? Maybe, Emperor Bai replied. Understood, I'll do my best to figure out what's happening, Jian Wushuang replied. Be careful, if you get into trouble and can't settle it with your ancient god clan alone, let me know. I'll send people from the Sanctuary Alliance. With that being said, Emperor Bai disconnected the transmission. Jian Wushuang remained there in his throne, but his face was now darkened. The Sky-Devouring clan, as one of the top 4 clans, has so much influence on the other clans. If the Sky-Devouring clan really swapped sides, that would be a big blow for those clans that follow it. I hope the leader of the Sky Devourers are not that foolish. If not, Jian Wushuang had a cold gaze. With a new ancient god emperor emerging from the ancient god clan, a coronation ceremony was planned for a month from now, with many tribes and clans coming over to attend. This news took the entire special tribe domain by storm. Many experts from tribes and clans all over were shocked when they heard the news. After all, after the ancient god emperor collapsed from the first era, there was not another ancient god emperor. The affairs within the ancient god clan were always handled by King Chen Xing, and for a long period now. But now, a new emperor? And not King Chen Xing, but an ancient god expert with true bloodline of emperors? And this new emperor was from the human domain? Please go to read the latest chapters for free. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.